Edwards rotates in at the back. He's got the football. Bumps into traffic and escapes. Donovan Edwards racing to the end zone. Michigan flexing immediately.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
First play fake, Green, over the middle, has a receiver, Traylon Ray, first play, Mountaineers!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And trying maybe to put this game away right now. Second down and goal, 13th play of the drive. Cook to the air, into the end zone, caught. And there's Luther Burden. Touchdown, Missouri.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
They stack the line of scrimmage. Fafita rolls, fires on the run. What a throw and catch. Cowering down the sideline. He is in. Touchdown, Arizona.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Dart fires wide open. Prescorn. Touchdown, Rebels.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
From the shotgun. That throw's intercepted. Pierce down the sideline. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, 365 Sports on this beautiful, although still chilly, but better, today on a Tuesday in Central Texas, wherever you are, coast to coast. That's our audience on 365 Sports, from all the way to the West Coast to the East Coast, sometimes Seattle to Orlando. And although Orlando not quite on the coast, we appreciate your time. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. In the studio today, Garrett Ross and also Jack McKenzie. And on the same day, Washington introduces Jedd Fisch, who was at Arizona. Arizona introduces Brennan, who was at San Jose State and has connections to the former and legendary coach at Arizona, Dick Tomei.
Yeah, and he was a finalist the last time around. This is to me, this is a really interesting hire in a couple different aspects. Like, most people probably don't know all that much about San Jose State football, but they've been to bowl games 3 of the 4 years that Brent and Brennan has been there. It is not a wealthy school. In fact, I think they're on probably the most shoestring budget of any FBS school. There are just so many different things that go on there. And Arizona is actually right now in a budget crunch themselves. So if you want to ball on a budget, so to speak, Brennan is probably the guy you need to hire. And he's a very interesting coach as they move into the Big 12. I think it's a nice hire, and we'll see how it goes. And it appears that they might not be losing some of the people in the transfer portal they thought they might be.
Well,
losing.
They might not. By the way, I got a note about Brennan in a minute that's about what you mentioned that was tweeted by Antonio Morales of theathletic.com. Craig, it's the constant hamster wheel, but at least 2 jobs are now filled, and now we'll figure out what San Jose State may do. In South Alabama, we'll get to that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it works, guys. There's a hamster wheel where, hey, you lose a job and there's a job that needs to be filled. So, yeah, I mean, that's typically – not typically, that's how it goes. And so, yeah, now it's San Jose State's turn on the clock, and – they'll promote from within or go grab somebody from somewhere else, and that will continue on. But the lower you get, the less I think most people are paying attention to it by that point. And I think we're kind of getting there now once San Jose State makes their mark. I'm not sure how much of a broader conversation it will still be, that part of the carousel, which is really the outside of the Harbaugh wild card and the other that you just mentioned, kind of the only ones that are still out there remaining. So the wheel itself is starting to slow back down to a crawl. It was just slightly turning before the Jedd Fisch news, and then it got ramped back up, but now starting to slow back down again, although with Michigan that could speed back up in a hurry. But, yeah, I mean, seems to be a solid enough hire. I won't pretend to have a great breakdown. Paul mentioned his stats from the bowl game. That was 3 of the last 4 years. He's been at San Jose State for 7, but has had that postseason success here in the last handful of years. If you look at the overall record, you're not going to be impressed. You know, this is not a hire that jumps out and you're like, man, look at this. Is not Kalen DeBoer, where you're like, look at that record. But he has, been to the postseason consistently. He's got ties that you mentioned as well. And I think the best thing for Arizona here was they clearly already had some familiarity with the guy from the last go round, and they were able to move quickly. And they needed to move quickly because of the fact that you've got a terrific quarterback and a great wide receiver and a bunch of really good defensive players, the ones that haven't already jumped into the portal in the last 48 hours. Some of those guys still wanting to know who their coach was. So you needed to be quick with this, and they were. And I think that bodes well for Arizona as far as the rest of it, recruiting and all of those things. That'll remain to be seen. But they were able to move swiftly, and I think that should benefit them.
It all depends. Is Akina going to Arizona? Nason, is he going to Arizona? Is he going back? The answer appears to be on that one, no, who's now at Texas, who was at Arizona, and the timing of all this. By the way, I mentioned coast to coast, Mexico, Canada, and Germany in the house, too. So thank you for being able to give us your time where you might be around the world. So there's that. Here's a Brennan note. When he was at San Jose State, this is from Antonio Morales. He had to fundraise to ensure that San Jose State players could have breakfast in the facility every day because the school can't afford it, and still makes bowl games. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he has some semblance of resources. So that's a pretty cool note from Antonio Morales, who normally covers USC, but right there with San Jose State in the same neighborhood.
So we're going to pretend like San Jose State's in the same ballpark with Alabama. And, that's what that conversation turns into is you got teams operating on the same level where it's like one of them can't even get regular breakfast. And the other one can basically say, do you want gold cornflakes or would you like platinum cornflakes? And so that right there is telling of how much of a disparity there can be when you've got a school not even able to regularly afford breakfast. So, yeah, Brennan should benefit greatly from, and I know Arizona, insert the financial jokes here of what the university's dealing with, but as far as that part of it goes, yeah, he's going to be not having to worry about that too much. So that'll be a blessing for sure.
Well, look, they had a $240 million budget shortfall, and we can, if somebody like Ocean's 11 style robbed it, we can scratch San Jose State off the list of suspects, because clearly they didn't have it. And it's just little things that like these would stand out to me about a coach in that he's been able to be successful there with these budgetary restrictions. And people may say, so what? Coaching football is coaching football. What does that matter? Well, if you're at Arizona and your coaches, you only have limited practice time. This isn't the old days where you could just practice for 6 hours because you felt the team needed a good kick in the pants. Like, that's not how it works. So you have limited practice time available with your athletes. Well, in those windows, you have all these drills, and if you ever get the chance to watch a real college practice, it is the great ones. It's a well-oiled machine of drill to drill to drill, and things are set up. And so if you're at Alabama, all the position coach has to do is go, come GA, set up my blocking sled.
No, he doesn't have to do that. They've already done it.
It just does it, but it's there, but they have butlers essentially that set up everything for them. And these GAs at San Jose State, they might have 2. And that's those guys are probably also running water and Gatorade and helping the trainer get tape and all these other things because the assistant coaches have to set up their own drills. Again, why do you say it's a big deal? Well, that's time lost that other coaches have to spend with their players. So he's been able to be successful, navigating things that most schools don't really have to deal with, even in his own conference.
No, absolutely. But Washington, as Arizona has their guy in Brennan, they introduced Jedd Fisch today. And here's a picture of him at the press conference. Softy, our good friend from KJR Seattle. Rarely in life does somebody leave something that we love. We are here for the W for winning, the W for work, and the W for Washington.
Oh, he's got a slogan down. I'm sure he worked on that on the plane or wherever in the last 2 or 3 days. Good for him. I mean, I think it's a really good hire. I you don't want to get all into the conversation. I know that Arizona fans are very sensitive or butthurt or just pissed off right now because he said things. I'm sorry, I'm just desensitized to coaches, and I stopped believing them a long time ago when it came to them talking about coaching jobs. So the fact that he said whatever he said that made Arizona fans feel like he was going to be around for the long haul is nothing different than what insert coach's name is said at insert university at some point over time. So I know they're hurting, but I'm not surprised that he made that jump, and not surprised that he's already getting to work at Washington. He's got his slogan there, and we'll see how it all works as they move into the Big Ten. But he's going to have a lot of Arizona fans certainly wishing him to fail there, and Washington fans who have huge expectations that are wanting him to come in and win right away and keep this thing chugging on along like Kalen DeBoer had it. So where does he fall in line with that? I don't know. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think he's a good coach, even though we haven't seen him actually sit somewhere and build something and do it over the long haul. This seems the spot that would probably happen unless – what, Florida? Is that the one that he was linked to? Florida came calling. Would that make him move again?
Yeah, he's always had this a little bit of an infatuation, of course, like some college coaches with the NFL.
I don't know, but this would be a job where you'd sit pat for the most part. I mean, I know Kalen DeBoer just left for Alabama. There are exceptions, but for Jedd Fisch, seems like this is a long-haul job. And, let's see how he does with it. But mighty huge shoes to fill left by Kalen DeBoer. And, there's going to be a lot of work to be done with that roster, as there will be with Arizona and Brent Brennan. And, that's just part of the deal now. And you got to scramble and get things in a row as best you can, even though it's pretty late and later than we'd normally have these kind of things going on.
All right, also, let's go to the Houston story. The University of Houston and Willie Fritz, they've hired their coordinators. Mississippi State offensive coordinator Kevin Barbay and Tulane's Shell Wood to the same positions with the Cougars, so they have filled their coordinator positions for Willie Fritz in his first year with Houston. And then Kane Womack from South Alabama, the head coach, beat Oklahoma State, remember, earlier this year in what was a surprising game. He now will join Kalen DeBoer and the staff at Alabama. You read up on him, very much tied into that Alabama area in the South when it comes to recruiting. Lots of pretty good feedback on him. Being named the defensive coordinator, Travaris Robinson was somebody that they wanted to look at too. They have Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator, and now Womack, who's well-respected based on what I read, and also checking in with a few people that cover South Alabama and Alabama itself.
Yeah, we've seen it again. We saw it with Sean Lewis going to Colorado and now at San Diego State as a head coach, and then now we've seen it. We saw it with Matt Entz, even at a lower level down, joining the USC staff, and now we've seen it with Kane Womack going from South Alabama to the tide of head coaches leaving to become coordinators. But look, if you can make that jump, I mean, just the base salary, even for a first-year defensive coordinator, without all the maybe SEC pelts on the wall like a guy like Will Muschamp would have, is still more money that you're making as the head coach at South Alabama, and can set you on a path, if you're successful there, to being a head coach at a like-size school.
The connection, Craig, and Paul, is he coached at Indiana when DeBoer was at Indiana, so they know each other. So there's always that little spider web or connection, and so he now joins the Alabama staff. Now, Jim Harbaugh. Bruce Feldman had this note, Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports had this note that Harbaugh and Michigan are in talks. Obviously, he visited with the Chargers, and perhaps he'll visit with somebody else in the NFL. But he's working on language, or wants language, according to what Wetzel's reporting, for immunity from termination for any finding stemming from multiple current NCAA investigations, industry sources, saying to Dan Wetzel. This has to do with a couple of things. And so he wants protection. Otherwise, financial terms, about 6 years, $11.5 million, which would make him the highest paid coach, at least for now. So he wants protection. And also, if in fact something goes down, he wants what would be not the AD who could make the decision or the president who could make the decision, but he wants like a 3-person panel, a committee that would make the decision.
All right. This is Jim Harbaugh telling them he's going to take an NFL job without telling them he's going to take an NFL job. That is way too much power to give your head coach. way too much. And I know that he just won the national title.
Which is even more reason why you don't have to put up with it.
But
It's not like you're still reaching for that.
No, you like to say like the president or the athletic director can't fire you, that you need a quorum of 3 people.
No, they can fire him for basically production or lack of it, but not for anything.
Well, I mean, but like if you have to go to a committee to decide you fire the coach, then then you can go around the 2 people who are supposed to be in charge of you, which we already knew that he and Ward Manuel they're driving on the same highway, but they're not sharing a car. You know, they're kind of meet you there people. Like that's how it works. So this to me, I know that like, and look, the Michigan fans are probably like, give him whatever he wants. We don't want to lose him. We just won the national title. But that's way too much power to give a coach, especially if you're going to say like, hey, you can't fire me for the times I broke the rules. Well, man, like you're just kind of giving him way too much. So I think he's going to the NFL, but leaking this out can make it seem at least publicly like he can tell Michigan fans like, look, you can still love me. I told them what I wanted to come back, and I decided to go to the NFL.
Yeah, that certainly seems like the most logical reasoning behind all those demands. I mean, I know that once you have the national title under your belt that, you've got a little bit more sway. But that seems to be a little extreme, all of these wishes for him in this new contract. So I think that, Paul, you're probably spot on, and that he's asking for something that he knows that they can't give him. And therefore, when he decides to go to the NFL, like you said, he can tell the Michigan faithful, hey, I didn't want to go, but they didn't want to give me everything that I wanted. But, I mean, otherwise, if they just can't do that. I mean, that's bulletproofing yourself. And then that's even more reason for, if there was something, the NCAA, who he cannot get any bulletproof contract from, for them to go, okay, so Michigan's basically guaranteed that they can't do anything because of his contract. We'll just double down on what we were planning on doing and make it even worse. We'll make it so bad that you have no choice but to fire him, right? Isn't that what would probably happen? Mm-hmm. Because if you did something egregious enough to get fired from Michigan, but they can't fire you for it because it's under that umbrella. I mean, that just seems all kinds of silly to begin with. But, yeah, that would just lead to somebody like the NCAA, for whatever that issue might be. If it was under their jurisdiction, that's the thing. Where would it fall? But, yeah, you would think that they would just go death penalty mode because something had to be done, and that the school can't do anything about it. So, yeah, that's curious. But then when you think about the NFL part of it, and the fact that he basically wins either way. Either they say no and he goes and takes an NFL job, or they say yes and then he's got a choice to make between taking an NFL job or basically being, again, bulletproof practically in Ann Arbor. And, I don't know. That's too much power for one man. No, and like you said, they've already had the big glass of water with the Natty here recently. It's not like they're still parched from 1997 and they desperately need a drink. They just had a big old gulp. And so, I don't think that makes sense. Speaking of that, Craig, do you think that because they've already had the gulp, there's no reason to put up with anything, letting somebody walk on water? You've won the national title. Yeah. Of course, he could probably win 1 or 2 or 3 more, but there's no you give somebody too much power, and you give somebody too much power, usually ends up bad.
I know this is a deep cut, and I'm sure that only a few people, including on the chat, are going to get this. But outside of Prima Nocta, I don't know what he could have asked for that would give him more power.
Okay, hold on. Prima.
It's a Braveheart joke.
Okay. Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in the 90s. You probably saw it.
Yeah. I saw the movie, but I probably, when he said that, I just thought he was talking some kind of different language or whatever.
Latin, yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that is a different language.
Okay. All right. So there we are with Harbaugh. I want to get to Troy Dannett at Washington. You want to close anything else up on Harbaugh?
Yeah, I think that he's probably bound for the NFL. I don't know that, but I think especially with that contract demand, that just seems like a guy who's setting himself up to, like we said, have the best of both worlds, where he didn't choose to leave Michigan, or because they just didn't want to grant his wishes. But he's a smart guy, and that right there, though, that just seems, especially with what you just dealt with over the last year in particular, it's like, what are you worried about happening too? Like, that's the other thing, is not only are you protecting yourself, but
it's paranoia to me also.
I don't know. It's just like, what do we not know about? Like, what other shoe could drop that you're worried about dropping? So that's the kind of where I would be curious if I was a Michigan person. Looking at this would be like, should that all the concerns kind of be behind us at this point? That would just make me leery that something else could come down the pipeline, and then he could be like, well, it's not my, I can't do anything about it, or you can't do anything about it to me. So, yeah, that's a little too much.
I did reach out to Dan. Maybe we'll get him tomorrow. He wasn't available to do today. We will hear from Manny Navarro. He covers Miami for theathletic.com on their Cam Ward pickup. Cody Bradford, tomorrow in Waco at 11:30, there's a luncheon. It's already been sold out at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame as the World Series Championship trophy will be presented, and there'll be some other things, readings and proclamations. Eric Nadel, the voice of the Rangers, will be there. Cody Bradford, former Baylor and Rangers starting pitcher and also bullpen at times, will be there. He's going to join us today at 4:25. We'll also have Craig's Off the Radar, Paul's Top 5, Todd Archer, ESPN.com, and John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. That's our guest lineup today on 365 Sports. Now, Troy Dannon, the AD at Washington, was on Seattle Sports. I think it's the ESPN facility in Seattle, on what when he had an inkling about what might happen with DeBoer. Believe it or not, I had an inkling around Thanksgiving. We put a pretty good contract offer on the table. When we couldn't get it signed, that gave me some pause. This is from Mara Dooley, who works for that station. Dannon also asked if he felt that DeBoer and his agent were above board with him. You're never going to get the whole story. If you go in expecting to know the actual truth and the whole story, then shame on you. And she went on to say, and he went on to say as well that, listen, I don't think he did anything prior to the championship game against Michigan. He said there's just no way, despite the loss, he just could not see that as a possibility, not being naive, but he also wanted to clarify that too.
Well, yeah, and, hiring Jimmy Sexton is not the move that you do when you're going to, even if you're going to stay, give your school the fighting chance, right, to get what they want out of the deal. Like, there's going to be a lot of, that's the home run move to where I'm going to cash in on this. And, we had Softy yesterday, and, he made a good point where you're probably never going to be able to fully convince a lot of people that when he hired Jimmy Sexton and that contract was on the table, and Jimmy's like, look, some things are going to probably happen here in a couple months. Let's just see how that goes, and then we'll sign it when we need to sign it. Yeah, I mean, that makes it like, even if not telling him, like, Nick Saban's going to retire and I'm going to get you that job, but telling him, look, you don't know what's going to happen here in the next couple months, even Jimmy having that information, still works to their advantage.
It's almost like it's not insider trading to be able to do what he's able to do. Softy, Craig, saying that they were ready to go to $10.5 million with DeBoer at Washington, which is a high number, of course, especially with Harbaugh being offered 11.5, if that is true, which would be the highest number for any head coach ahead of Kirby Smart and, of course, with now Saban being out.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and think that Jimmy Sexton didn't have an idea of what was going on. I think it'd be foolish at this point to assume that he didn't, but how did he present it to Kalen DeBoer? I'm sure he had in mind that there's a chance Saban could retire and there would be a bigger, if not multiple bigger jobs opening up by the time Kalen DeBoer's great run was over with. I mean, you can't predict it all, obviously. Can't predict that they'd end up in the national championship game, but you're sitting there and you're getting into late November and you've got this contract that's unsigned and you're seeing where they're positioned, and I think you have a pretty good idea of where it's going and that this guy and just industry chatter, I'm sure, of just talking to other people of gauging how popular Kalen DeBoer is. He knew that there was more money to be made one way or the other, whether it was going to be from Washington or from another job that opened up. Now, did he know it was Alabama? I guess we'll never really know that. If Saban is to be believed, which I know some people will believe him and some won't, then this all happened very suddenly, right? I mean, he was just sitting there interviewing a coordinator the day he decided to retire. He was trying to fill out his staff and hire a brand new coordinator, and then at some point during that day, he just was done with it all. So if that really was the case, then this wasn't long and planned out. But I would also have to imagine that Jimmy Sexton, whoever else, was probably well aware that this was something Nick Saban was also weighing, and there was an opportunity that was possibly there. So, yeah, maybe the timing worked out perfectly, but the non-contract signing that dragged on and became, something that was sort of always bubbling up under the surface or was right out there in front if you were out in Seattle. That was one thing that you kind of just kept kicking the can down the road, I think, in your head of like, oh, well, he'll eventually sign it, doesn't want to be a distraction or whatever the case might have been. I mean, not that would have been a distraction, but just, you're superstitious or something. I don't know. But they're keeping you preoccupied with the fact that they're still going out there and winning games, and you're just like, all right, we'll worry about this when the ride's over with. But there was always just something kind of curious about the fact that he wasn't signing, because it just seemed like the logical thing to do in the middle of that run and just further amplify the success that you're having with the program and what more is to come. And so that was always peculiar. And then you see how it eventually worked out, and it all just makes more sense. Although how constructed was it and how far back, I mean, that we don't know. But that contract thing was always one of those really curious parts of the Kalen DeBoer puzzle. And then you see the ending here.
Dennis Dodd had this nugget on Arizona. Noah Fafita, their freshman All-American quarterback redshirt, and McMillan are staying at Arizona. This is according to Dennis Dodd. Wide receivers coach Kevin Cummings, who's in Seattle, by the way, and was there for the Jedd Fisch press conference, will be a key to that effort. Now, if he's not and he goes to Washington, maybe things change. Now, speaking of Fafita, Jason DeLaria was the quarterback. Jaden DeLaria was the quarterback at Arizona. He lost his job. He was injured and then lost his job. Fafita took over, had a great run. He then transferred to Texas State, which then leads to today. And I thought about this. TJ Finley was really good. And, of course, Baylor knows all about him. Had a good year. Not great, but he had a good year. He now, according to Pete Nakos with On3, plans to enter the transfer portal.
3,439 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. They won the bowl game over Rice. Texas State did, where they drained the stadium of all the beer, which not a surprise if you've ever been to San Marcos.
Yeah, that's what they do down there.
That's what they do. They're pros at it.
SMU wasn't quite ready for that.
No. I don't think the city of Dallas was quite ready for it. I'm pretty sure the surrounding areas were tapped dry, too, once the stadium went out. But it is, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that G.J. Kenney, took Jaden DeLaria knowing he had this. But, I mean, I don't know the thought process on it. But T.J. Finley's another guy who's about to be at his fourth school, LSU, Auburn, Texas State, and then to be determined. So, this is the era that we're in. But he had a good year and won. But I guess that G.J. Kenney feels that they can win with Jaden DeLaria more. But I don't know if that's – I don't know if you were going –
And don't forget – yeah, no, you're right.
I don't know if this is – going up from a Volkswagen to a BMW. I think it's another Volkswagen.
Jaden DeLaria was really good at Washington State a few years back. But he's also one of those players that you just kind of had to live with whatever he was going to be on any given Friday night or Saturday. I mean, he could be brilliant at times, super athletic, and at other times he could be a turnover machine and be the reason that you lost the game. It was just kind of one extreme to the next, and where did you find yourself? But a super talented player, had an off-field issue that became the point of some contention down there in Tucson after he had gotten there, and then that eventually led into a whole quarterback issue with the fact that you had Noah Fafita there and ready to step in, and eventually taking over entirely and grabbing that job by the horns and running with it. And so that left DeLaria with eligibility remaining to look elsewhere. And so Texas State it is. And G.J. Kenney, I'm not going to doubt for 1 second that he knows about quarterbacks. I'm just sort of surprised because I think T.J. Finley just had the best year he's had in college football, and I thought it was pretty solid for Texas State. So I think that there's obviously some things that he likes better about DeLaria. Don't know what the conversation was also like between him and T.J. Finley. I don't know. That's just kind of curious to me because it seemed like that would just logically be your guy again this next year because of the season that he had and the fact that you were pretty good. But, for whatever reason, they're making the pivot, and so T.J. Finley's back out there, and we'll look at school number 4 in 5 years, which is just – that's crazy, guy. Come on. That's just kind of nuts. 4 schools in 5 years.
All right, why did he leave Auburn? LSU, Garrett? Couldn't play?
He got lost on the depth chart.
Was he during the Joe Burrow time?
It would have been, right before that.
Okay. Then he left Auburn. Go ahead, Craig. I'm just saying, it's just like, this wide open, they got to be able to leave too, but I just don't know, is this really what's good for college football?
I don't know. I'm just saying it's crazy that a guy somewhere 4 schools in 5 years, bouncing around trying to get playing time or whatever it is, obviously trying to get playing time, but if whatever reasons are behind why he's moving and not able to just hold on to a job, I don't know, but that's just kind of crazy. And so, Jaden DeLaria is a really good player. And G.J. Kinney knows what he's doing with quarterbacks, so I think that'll be a fantastic marriage. But it's just kind of surprising because I guess maybe if you're down in Bobcat country or you're on the Texas State message boards, this was a conversation. But for me, not paying close attention to what they've got going on, I just assumed it would be T.J. Finley again. But that's an interesting wrinkle, and I'm excited about the possibilities of what Jaden DeLora, with all that talent and athleticism, can do in a G.J. Kinney offense. I think that'll be exciting. But again, it can be feast or famine with him sometimes.
You wonder if Baylor had not figured out their transfer portal with DeQuan Finn, and he was open or available earlier, would there have been any interest at all? Although I think that because Finn has the 1 year, and Finley, of course, has been around for a long, long time. Thanks to Michael Sheldon Reed and also who was it? Zona Tucson 93 for jumping in today as you have had your new head football coach introduced. Talia, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think we just kind of skipped over Noah Fafita and Ted McMillan announcing that the report that they could be coming back. That's the one saving grace in all of this if you're an Arizona football fan. I mean, there's other guys that you wish could stick around as well that have already entered the transfer portal. But if somehow or another through this process you can keep those two on board, then you have something to really rally around and be excited about because they're two superstar-type players. But yeah, that remains to be seen. I think there's still a lot of moving parts here, and until we see it from those guys themselves, you never know what kind of offer or what kind of situation could be going on behind the scenes. But if somehow Brent, Brennan, and company are able to
keep those guys,
then I think that's something that, out of all this kind of misery over the last couple of days for Arizona football fans, that's something that could really get you excited again because they're special players.
There was a corner that Jason Shear said was a baller who entered the portal today. So that's one thing that went against him. Now, this was something I saw. The NCAA has created an absolute mess with the transfer portal, okay? They have. They could have prevented this probably 20 years ago. Maybe not. Alabama's roster, or any team that loses a head coach, is then wide open for how many days? 30. Tampering, of course, occurs immediately. I don't know, you could say tampering. Maybe it even occurs if a coach is not gone. Why is the coach who leaves a program or the program that loses a coach, their roster is wide open? Why can't they then themselves get in the portal and find new players? Why is it a one-way street?
It's not.
What are you talking about?
Alabama, their roster's open for 30 days, right?
Yeah.
Well, most everybody who's entered the portal has already pretty much gone to the school they're going to, although we just mentioned some names. Should it be closed, the portal closed for a team that loses a head coach? Because of the deadline. We see the timeline. Or
yeah, but I mean, Alabama didn't stop recruiting, when Nick said, there were guys there. So I think that, maybe they could get, an extra week or something like that, I guess. But, to me, because they were already taking recruits in the portal and doing that, yes, the roster's open, but, maybe I don't know. Eventually it's got to stop somewhere. I don't think it's that much of a disadvantage.
Okay. All right.
But personally,
a question that was sent to me on the question. And again, Alabama's still recruiting players.
Well, okay. So, no. The portal's open for players to jump in the portal for 30 days, but they still can only sign during certain times.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though they can be in the portal, if they don't pick a place by the time that the semester starts, then they're going to have to wait till the spring's over anyway. So, basically, if you have 30 days to enter the portal, even though the portal entry window is closed for everybody else, this is more about the players and the coaches, because if you don't pick a place by the end of the signing window of this, which is coming up here, I believe, this week, then you're still going to have to wait till after the spring.
Based on when semesters open around campuses you may want to go to.
You'll just have to wait till after the spring, and you'll be in the portal. So,
Lorenzo said this in the chat. I get what he's saying. I think he's talking about why not give the team 30 days free-range recruiting to offset the losses they have from people entering the portal.
That's
then
a slippery slope.
Everybody else is at the mercy of Arizona's coaching search or coaching change. So now everybody has to open their doors because Arizona lost their coach.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be smart for everybody else to want to adhere to. That seems like it'd be kind of a mess there.
We got to take a – okay, anything else you guys want to mention? I've got some – Matt Brown has something pretty cool on the last time your favorite program was ranked number one at some point during the season over the last 80 years. Conundrum, if you can recruit to San Jose State, Tucson is easy. when it comes to Brennan, the new coach at Arizona. I wish him the very best of luck.
Did we mention Tagovailoa?
Oh, yeah. Tagovailoa is now entering the NFL draft. I know you guys were going to drop your head about how I said that. I went online and listened to how they pronounced his name via Maryland. So I know, that's why I went online, but he's entering the NFL draft. He's going to have his waiver that he wants to be able to play another year because of the wait, 6 years, et cetera. It was apparently denied.
I'm glad to be wrong about this. And the only reason I said I don't see any reason, it just seems like they don't fight anything anymore. But I'm glad that he asked, he got told no, and he's moving on. And he's not trying to sue for what would be 1 year of college eligibility and opening up a can of worms that you couldn't maybe put back together.
Never made sense that he would get this waiver. Made zero sense whatsoever. I know you've got to try, and there was NIL money to be made for Talia, but he played past the threshold of games. Bottom line, simple as that. Nothing personal. The rules are the rules. Sometimes you actually have to live by the rules. So whoever on Alabama's staff fumbled his eligibility, or if it was a decision on his part that he just thought he would never need the eligibility, I'll throw it away, or just everybody was just not paying attention, whatever the case was. They screwed that up, or they didn't plan accordingly, and that's unfortunate, but that's the rules. So, yeah, I'm glad that the NCAA, as I predicted they would, stuck to their rule book and stuck to their actual guns here, and I'm glad that he's not going to sit there and go pursue some lawsuit like others probably would and drag this thing out. I mean, just go get ready for the pros. You had your years in college, and you played as much as you possibly could play under the rules, and now it's time to move on. So simple as that. This is the way it should have been all along. I understand trying to get the extra year, just thinking that this is how the NCAA works. Maybe you could go and get that extra year. So I don't blame him for trying, but the decision to allow that would then have just opened up Pandora's box when it came to guys requesting eligibility because they only played in 5 games. And look, I was honoring my sick aunt and whatever else they would come up with to justify why they played in 5 games. And all of a sudden 5 games doesn't matter. And so then it just would have been way too much to have to then open up and deal with. So, yeah, this never made sense to clear, and I'm not surprised that they're quickly moving on from this. So good luck to them in the pros.
When we come back, it's Manny Navarro. He works for theathletic.com. Miami picked up Cam Ward over the weekend, who decided to take his name out of the NFL draft. A little bit later on, who was named to the Football Writers Association All-American team as a freshman, NFL Rookie of the Years, and when they went to college. Much more to get to, including men's basketball schedule tonight. Manny is next on 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. My dentist is Dr. Steve Childress, and he has done a great job at helping me get my dental work checked and ready and ahead of schedule rather than behind. I still got a few things I have to do, but I've made up a lot of ground the last, 3 years since I got the first appointment with Dr. Childress and Stonewood Dental. What used to be, I don't want to go to the dentist. Why would I want to go to the dentist? Because I'm sure I have a cavity, or I'm going to get a root canal, or I have the tooth pulled. He allowed me to understand if you don't take care of it even preemptively, or at least when you start to feel something that doesn't feel right, or it hurts, or there's a little bit of a jab, it's going to get worse. What could be filling a cavity could end up being a tooth pulled or a root canal or both. And so now I am ahead of schedule. Still work to be done, but I appreciate what he does. He has served our country as a dentist for our soldiers overseas. Great guy. Unbelievable place that helps with teeth cleaning to something even more, of course, involved. It's Stonewood Dental and Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Drive into the new year with confidence and excitement during the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get incredible deals on our entire selection of new Ram trucks, Jeeps, SUVs, Chrysler sedans, or a sporty Dodge. Get more for less guaranteed. More value, more selection, more service, more trade-in allowance, and even more competitive financing. Hurry in and start 2024 with a bang. Shop the greatest selection of inventory in Central Texas at Allen Samuels in Waco. In-store or online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com and make it unforgettable.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Manny Navarro, theathletic.com covers Miami. Cam Ward, after Miami was looking and searching, went to Albany to find someone to be a part of their quarterback room, and then one of the best that was in the portal or open, Cam Ward now is a part of the Hurricanes and Mario Cristobal's program. Manny, thank you very much. Was this like a late Christmas present for them?
It really was. I think when Cam said on January 1st that he was going to turn pro, I think Miami was sort of turned into scramble mode, really, because they hadn't really pushed, I think, for any other elite quarterbacks or felt good about it. And they kind of put all their eggs in the Cam Ward basket. So they knew they had until January 15th. That was the deadline for early enrollees into the draft. And Cam just decided 2 days before to change his mind and come to Miami.
Manny, they're like, again, like you said, they put a lot of eggs in that basket. I know that they got Reese Poffenbarger from Albany, and that was the transfer quarterback they had until Cam said this, but this is a pretty seismic turn of events for them, because had they had to go into the spring cycle unsure of what their quarterback situation would be, that would have been really hard to deal with going into the year. And, for that to turn out and get their number one choice, that had to be like getting a lottery ticket.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, Cam is a guy that I think everybody in the country who's looking for a quarterback in the transfer portal, they identified him as one of the top guys, right? And if not the top guy, and 44 career starts between his time in Incarnate Word and Washington State, and, a lot of gaudy passing numbers, 13,000 career yards, 119 touchdowns. Just the kind of guy who, you think you can play on Sundays and could really take your program to the next level. They thought they had that in Tyler Van Dyke the last couple seasons. Tyler turned into an interception machine towards the end of his career here at Miami and entered the portal and left for Wisconsin. And they were kind of left, hey, do we really want to count on a sophomore or a freshman to come in here and lead this thing, or even a transfer from Albany. And Ward obviously was a big upgrade for him.
Manny, what's just kind of the feel around the Miami program following this past season? Obviously, there's excitement today with the Cam Ward news, but just how would you describe sort of the vibes in South Beach right now when it comes to the program?
Well, I think they certainly feel better about it. Mario talked about this. He never came out and said it was going to be a slow build, but he said, look, we're going to do this through recruiting. And that's where Miami put most of their effort, signing a bunch of freshmen, the last two signing classes, having two top 10 recruiting classes in back-to-back years. He could have, Mario could have gone the other way and just said, well, we're going to sign 30 transfers, right? And try to just load up on guys that can help us right away. But that wasn't the plan. He wanted to build a foundation. And, you look at this season, yes, Miami finished 7-6 with a bowl loss to Rutgers, but there were a lot of freshmen who got on the field early for Miami, got a lot of experience. They've got two freshman All-Americans, and Ruben Bain and Francis Mauigo on both sides, offensive and defensive line there. Two anchors here for the next couple of seasons. They've got other young guys that they're developing all over the field. And so Mario took the slow build approach and sprinkling in a couple of transfers. He feels good about it, and they expect a leap forward here in year 3.
What if it doesn't go well early? Anything like the clock is ticking, or is he pretty much set right there?
Yeah, I think he's set. I mean, I've said this repeatedly. He's got a 10-year deal, $80 million, and so he's got 7 years left on that. You don't buy yourself out of something like that. This was a long-term investment for Miami, who doesn't really, up until the last couple of years, didn't really spend money on football. It's been a seismic change from the top of the school on down to say, hey, we're going to invest in football. It's something we're known for. The U is known for football as much as it is its medicine and its academics, and we need to make it great again, right? That was their approach, and so this is an investment in Mario Cristobal. I think we don't start having that discussion with Mario until after year 5, year 6, if he still hasn't gotten things right.
Manny, what else do they need to add to highlight the Cam Ward experience?
Well, look, I like their two receivers. Xavier Restrepo is coming back off a 1,000-yard season. Jacoby George flashed. He had a good game against Texas A&M. You go back and watch the tape there. He had some other moments where he was involved in the explosive passing game, had a touchdown against Florida State. So they feel good about, two of the guys that they've got, but they really could use a third weapon, and that's something maybe Cam Ward could help bring in, right? When the spring transfer portal window opens up again in April, maybe there's a receiver who says, you know what, I could go down and be the number one guy at Miami. I'm going to change addresses. So I think that's one priority. I think the other one is safety. They lost two guys that were really, really good in Cameron Kitchens and James Williams, two guys that are going to get drafted. And I don't know that they really have anybody waiting in the wings to take over. It's sort of a big question mark going into the season. So I think between safety and maybe that true number one receiver, if they can address those two things, they could be a playoff team next year.
Manny, I was just curious. We hear so much out of Tallahassee when it comes to the future of the ACC. How much is that conversation occurring or reverberating around Miami at all?
Well, listen, the ACC was very excited when they got Miami in 2004, right? I mean, they thought, well, we've got Florida State, we've got Miami, we've got Virginia Tech, we've got three of the best teams in the country, right? And at the time, they weren't wrong. What happened was Miami went the wrong direction. Virginia Tech was good for a little while. They fell apart. And then Florida State, after they won their last national championship, went through a really tough period there after Jimbo Fisher left. So Mike Norvell's finally got this thing right. But Miami is, when they're at their best, a lightning rod in college football. And so I think everybody around the ACC is hoping that Mario Cristobal is the guy to get them on the right track, because if the ACC is going to be successful as a football conference, they need one of their flagship programs to carry its weight.
Do you think Miami would follow FSU at it? Like, what is their belief about the future of the ACC and their place in the future of college football?
Well, listen, I think everybody knows that we're gravitating towards the Power 2, right? If we're not already there with the Big Ten and the SEC. Miami is an AAU accredited program. They just got that about a year or two ago. Obviously, the Big Ten loves that. And about Miami, they get a ton of recruits out of the state of Florida. If the Big Ten were to be interested in expanding further south and getting into the state of Florida, I think Miami would raise its hand and say, yes, we're interested. But I think for right now, knowing the TV contract situation that nobody's gotten out of yet, but I know Florida State is dying to, I think for now, Miami sees itself as, potential to be the best program in the ACC and to build off of that in the years to come. And if the Big Ten comes calling in a few years, then to be ready for that move.
Manny, you did a story that is pinned at the top of your timeline on Twitter or X. We talked to future college football stars at the Under Armour All-American game, granted them anonymity, to gather insights on NIL. The coaches they liked and didn't like and what rules they'd like to see changed.
Yes.
I think I remember reading that when it first came out. What were a couple of the nuggets from the players, the student athletes or the players, football players, on what they would like to see changed?
Well, I think for most of them, the kids nowadays love those big photo shoots that were going on up until the NCAA decided, that's a big waste of money. We don't need to do that for guys that aren't on unofficial trips. So I think a lot of these kids, how they love the Instagram, and they would love to bring that back and make sure them and their buddies can get their photos taken. They're not happy about that. But I think, more important things, I think for some guys, they said less calling. They say coaches call way too much. Other guys want every trip that they go on, whether it's official or unofficial, to be covered by the school, especially if they have to drive far to get there with their parents. Those are some of the key nuggets that I remember them talking about.
Manny, with Cam Ward now their quarterback, what are the expectation levels of what 2024 may be the ceiling and the minimum requirement?
Yeah, I think the minimum requirement is 9 wins for Miami. I think to get anything less than that, getting one of the best quarterbacks in the country to transfer to your program, being in year 3, Miami improved by 2 wins from year 1 to year 2. I think getting from 7 to 9 is probably the minimum. And I would say the ceiling is winning the ACC. I don't think this is a national championship winning program. I don't think this is a team that you'll find in the Final Four as currently constructed. But they win the ACC or they get into the college football playoff, that would probably be the ceiling for this team right now. Mario has this thing headed in the right direction. Certainly think that, that there's been some major improvements, especially on the offensive and defensive line, which is where I think a lot of these championship teams ultimately are formulated. But they're not there yet in terms of depth. They still have a lot of young guys that need to be groomed and brought along. Cam Ward, though, gives you a really special weapon at the quarterback position, and we've seen what that's done for teams like Washington this past season and Tennessee the year before that, right? When you have a special guy at the QB position and a couple playmakers, you can put up a lot of points and have a top 10 caliber type team. So I think that's what Miami is at its ceiling right now.
Manny, I was having this discussion on a podcast earlier about, the 90s and early 2000s, the 3 teams in Florida, kind of had this almost treaty of we're going to have you're 25, our 25, you're 25. And, whoever gets the players that sway, when somebody gets the Ed Reeds and Sean Taylors of the world, they're going to be the stud team. When somebody gets the Derek Brooks and Andre Wadsworth of the world, they're going to be the stud team and all those things that wins. Nick Saban came along in 2007 and really just started gravitating those players north into Tuscaloosa. What do you think that Nick Saban's retirement, now that it's created this kind of power vacuum and this talent availability, will do for schools in Florida being able to maybe keep some of those guys there because they might have gone to Florida, Florida State, or Miami because they wanted to stay close to home, but Nick Saban, the Pope of college football, summoned them to Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly loosens things up a little bit, but we've got to see what kind of job Kalen DeBoer does. I mean, ultimately, a lot of these elite recruits, I think, want to go play for teams that have a chance to win a championship. And I think until Miami, Florida, and Florida State put themselves back on that level on a consistent basis, I know Florida State probably deserved to get into the playoff this year. And unfortunately for them, went undefeated and got left out. But if they can repeat that, and Miami can start to build some consistency where guys really feel, hey, I can go to Miami and have a chance to win a championship. I think that's what changes it more so than Saban leaving. He's obviously a tremendous magnet, but I would say where he departs, a guy like Kirby Smart only gets stronger, right? He's built a tremendous power there at Georgia, and it's going to be interesting to see what DeBoer does at Alabama. Can he keep it up? Can he continue to recruit at the kind of level that Nick did for so many years? I think Texas is another team to watch with Sarkisian, especially not going to the SEC. They could be the kind of program that steps in and replaces Alabama. So It's going to be interesting to watch, but I think ultimately the success of the in-state, the big three, as you called it, it's going to be on them to win and to make themselves relevant.
Manny, what is the way that Miami holds themselves with all this ACC uproar, with Florida State now suing the conference and vice versa? Where do they stand on all that?
Well, I think internally, they kind of wish that maybe Florida State would keep their mouth shut, right, and not create as many waves as they are, because in the end, the ACC, as a unit, they're trying to succeed. They're trying to make as much money as possible and survive and to keep up in the arms race. So I think while they certainly can understand Florida State complaining, they want to make more money and deserve more from the conference because they're the more successful program right now. They were all for some of the changes that the ACC decided to adopt, including the postseason revenue sharing and how teams that have more success on the field get more back. So they agreed with that part of Florida State's plan and thoughts. But I think in the long run, Miami's just worried about Miami and getting its football program back to where it wants to be instead of being an afterthought in college football.
Thank you, Manny. Appreciate you as always. Appreciate your time. Manny Navarro, theathletic.com, on the Miami Hurricanes, who need to get a little jolt, and maybe Cam Ward will give them that jolt. Hell of a player.
I don't think there's a maybe to it. He definitely gives them a jolt. He's the best available player that was out there, eligible to go somewhere still, in my estimation. I mean, I know most guys have already made their decisions, but he was you can throw everybody that entered the portal into the pool, and he's right there at the top of the quarterback rankings, and he's right there at the top of the best available player rankings. So, yeah, I think that's a massive get for Miami. He can sling it around and make plays, man. He's a really fun player to watch. Did not have a great year just as an organization up in Pullman this year, but I think the new scenery, some new bucks in his pocket as well, and just the experience and the talent that he has, that'll be a welcome reprieve from what they've had the last couple of years when they've had these big expectations but clearly could not, for one reason or another, get over the finish lines. Like 2 years ago, Tyler Van Dyke was good enough, other parts not so good, and then this past year, like, Tyler Van Dyke's not good enough, and other parts okay, but other parts not. It's so there's been something missing there that I think it hasn't just all come together, but Cam Ward's a great starting point for it to all rally around and come together through his play and his leadership. So I really like that pickup for Miami.
All right. When we come back, Matt Brown, who mentioned a little bit today on the EA Sports launch, there were thoughts that something might happen the night of the national championship game, but EA Sports never did do that, and it was more of a rumor. Matt Brown also saw earlier today a note that maybe it's sometime in July, and he has a note about that. But he also put up a graphic we'll get to in the next segment of when your football team was last ranked number one in the country. Not at the end of it would be at the end of the year, but last time they were ranked number one in the polls. We'll come back with that, maybe more droughts than we realize, and we'll have that for you next on 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. They are about to have yet another live auction online too. Wagyu steak, aged Wagyu steak auction coming Tuesday, January 30th, later on this month, and in fact 2 weeks from today. You can bid in person or you could also be online. All of their aged Wagyu steaks offered in auctions. Their Wagyu steaks are different. Not typically available to the public because of the added cost and the time. At Texas Beef House, they aged their beef, the entire beef, and not just the choicest cut of steak, but the entire carcass, resulting in improved texture and flavor for all of our beef. Paul was cooking something over the weekend and threw some stuff in that he got from me from TexasBeefHouse.com. Loved the flavor. It was delicious. There's the thumbs up. Whether you want 2 steaks or an entire half beef, they can accommodate you. And now the live auction is available. It's 2 weeks from tonight. It's Tuesday, January 30th. Bid in person or online on their Wagyu steaks. The Duvall family has done a great job, located just outside of Tyler and White House. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Matt Brown, Extra Points, put out a graphic yesterday evening. The last time these programs were ranked #1 in the country in college football. Now let's go to the first one. Michigan, of course, like 5 or 6 days ago. And then Georgia and Alabama. Clemson, it's been now 3.5, almost 3.5 plus years. Now look down the list of those. Let's go to under 2010. Florida, 2009. Texas, the year 2008. That's the year the trifecta with Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Texas in the BCS where Oklahoma got in the championship game. Missouri, 2007. Was that Chase Daniel, or was that even after Chase Daniel?
That's probably, 2007 been Chase Daniel.
Miami. That the year they won the national title with the 2001 great team?
That would have been the year after when they lost.
No, that's right, because that's in December, so that's before any kind of a championship game.
So that would have been the year they lost to Ohio State on what was the worst pass interference call ever.
Oh, that's right. I remember that game.
Non-call.
Sorry,
Non-call. Nebraska, that was before they played Oklahoma the year OU rose from the ashes to win the national title and lost to OU. That was the last time Nebraska was ranked number 1. Then there's Tennessee, and you can Penn State, Washington the year after they won the national title. No, maybe the year where they won the national title. Colorado, that same run where Colorado was with Darian Hagan and McCartney was the head coach. Virginia, I didn't know. I didn't realize. 1990, then UCLA, Iowa. And there's a lot of teams now in the 80s, as you can see, that continues to go back all the way. TCU in 1938, A&M in 1957. That's a long time ago. Arkansas, did not realize it had been that long ago in 1965. That might have been either the year or the year after when Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson in Arkansas and that Frank Broyles team won the national title in that time. Michigan State, that was Bubba Smith. They actually tied, I think, Notre Dame 10-10. Notre Dame ended up winning the national championship. Pitt, 82, maybe with Jacob Green. Sure if Marino was on that team or not, but there are some of the teams. If you have a favorite team, there's the list. Those teams have been ranked number 1 and how long it's been since they were.
A&M was 1957. Bear Bryant was there.
Did they claim a national title for that one?
They that one they kind of tried to
the earlier one.
But yeah. That like one of the ones where they might have but they did lose a game, and then there are only like 3 bowl games back then or 4. So
grip that up one more time, Garrett. BYU, the year they won the national title was in 1985. That's how early they were able to decide that. When the national championship games or whatever were usually on January 1st or a day before.
Yeah, that's cool. As an Oklahoma fan, I mean, it seems like it's not been 10 years since they were number 1, but
or 13 or 13.
I mean,
12
10 plus years since they were number 1. But that's, I guess, been the case. Hadn't crossed my mind really, but yeah, it's interesting to see that way. I mean, Texas, that's been a very long time, and you don't need to read through all of them, but yeah, that's just interesting to look at, and it's been a lot longer, I think, for some than I probably realized. Yeah, Nebraska since 2000. I mean, that's over 20 years ago. So that's crazy. But when you've had, I don't know, a handful of teams have had strangleholds on number 1. I mean, how many of those weeks since just 2000 or 2000 whatever, were Alabama, on top of that poll, and these last couple of years with Georgia. So you've had some dynasties that have like grabbed onto that and held on to that for a while in various parts. But yeah, I mean, this goes way, way back. So that doesn't account for, all these ones that are back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and all that. So yeah, it's been a long time for a lot of schools to be on that mountaintop. And it shows you how hard it is.
Yeah, Michigan won it recently. Georgia's won 2. Alabama's won a lot. LSU, of course, Clemson had their run. LSU with Joe Burrow. And that's it. It's been one of those teams, but it's been ranked number 1, most likely usually Alabama or Georgia lately, and that's it. And then before that, 2015 with Ohio State, that has not been ranked number 1 even since that year.
Yeah, it's surprising it's taken them that long, but then again, all those schools above them have all dominated.
Yep.
So they really get past Florida State, and that's where you finally get to somebody who hasn't won a title in the last 20 years, and that was the year that Mississippi, had their magical moment, and Mississippi State was there briefly on top of the polls. But
who was their quarterback? You remember? Dak Prescott, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. I guess it would have. Yeah, I guess it would have been. Yeah, it didn't seem like that was that long ago.
Yep.
The whole Mississippi. Remember the Sports Illustrated cover?
Uh-huh.
And they were both really good, and that just doesn't seem like that was 2014. But, yeah, I mean, they obviously didn't turn that into a natty. Notre Dame hasn't won a natty in forever. Oregon, that's their missing piece. And, yeah, so that little cluster there of teams that have sniffed it but weren't able to take it to the very top is interesting to look at. But, yeah, I mean, those are all the top dogs right there at the top, and then you get past that little group I mentioned, and there's USC who was a part of it, and Oklahoma kicked off the 2000s, and Auburn and Florida and Texas have all won them. So, yeah, not surprised that they're all kind of clustered there near the top. But those outliers are interesting to look at. The Notre Dame, Oregon, Mississippi State, Missouri, those who haven't won titles in that in a long time.
Yeah, when I looked at that list, I realized, it's hard to be number 1. It is hard, and that's obviously with the cluster of teams that have dominated in the last 4 years.
Well, look, and this grid only takes up 2 rows of a thing of all the
whole
teams that
time,
call it for the whole.
Well, look back to 1938, the last one. I think that's when they may have started the AP poll.
Yeah, absolutely. So since World War II, only this many teams have been able to do that. And, so that's how hard it is. The only solace I take in this graphic is that Florida State's last date is well past Miami and Florida's.
Yeah, that's a nice blue ribbon. It's not a crystal football, though, or the lipstick that they have nowadays, the big gold lipstick tube that replaced the crystal football.
Yeah.
But it's a cool blue ribbon, though.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, Clemson is obviously past Florida State, but still, you take the good with the bad.
Yep, so there's that. Now, the NFL released their Pepsi Rookie of the Year players. You don't have this one, do you, Craig?
Go ahead.
No, do you?
No, go ahead, yeah.
No, I'll wait.
Go ahead.
Well,
it's too late now.
I'm sorry. A-Chain, A&M.
A-Chan,
A&M. Gibbs, who, remember when Detroit drafted him, like, why do they have to have another running back? Alabama, Georgia Tech. Laporta, who has an incredible year as a rookie from Iowa. Puka Nacua, who was initially at Washington, then BYU. Phenomenal year. Bijan, Falcons, Texas. And then also C.J. Stroud, who probably is the favorite to win it. Quarterback at the Texans from Ohio State.
I would say that it's C.J. Stroud and then maybe Puka Nacua 1 and 2, because Puka Nacua, and of all those guys, look, A-Chan was the 3rd round pick, 1st round pick. Sam Laporta, I think, was the 2nd round pick. Bijan was the top 10 pick. C.J. Stroud was the 2nd pick. Puka Nacua was a 5th round draft pick.
Yep. I saw the audio actually on video when they actually called him. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he was hurt when he got to training camp, and they thought we'll see. Then once he got healthy, he kind of, if he's not there, I don't know if the Rams make the playoffs, because they wouldn't have had anybody to fill the void of Cooper Kupp for those first 4 weeks while he was out with a hamstring injury. Puka is a fun player, man.
And had a huge game in their loss to Detroit. One note that I saw the video when they were talking about picking somebody at that 5th round is who's the general manager with the Rams? Is it Les somebody?
Les Snead.
Okay. He said, and even what McVay was saying, is that you look at the time, the 40 times, and what you have to look at is what happens, do they ever get caught? Like Jerry Rice. Did anyone ever catch Jerry Rice from behind, no matter what his 40 time was? And they were talking about Nacua was somebody that when the rabbit's loose, he's going to be the one that catches the rabbit, even if he doesn't run like a 4.4 or 4.5 40.
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud's probably the favorite there, especially being a quarterback, and just what a fantastic year he's had. Can't imagine what Carolina Panthers fans are thinking about their current and their future with Bryce Young when you're sitting there watching what C.J. Stroud's doing. Are you convinced that Bryce Young's going to turn it around with the right coaching?
No, and here's the thing. I don't know if he'll ever get that, because it's like everything has to have the spine. We talk about
the
in
owner's
college.
Insane.
Yeah, So is the owner ever going to hire a coach who's going to be able to point him in the right direction, or is Bryce Young going to be one of those guys that, unfortunately for Bryce Young, is going to be a bust through really no fault of his own because the organization's bad?
Yeah, so I want to thank David Tepper. Remember when Matt Rule took that Panthers job and they were talking about all the facilities and the technology they use and all this and was making it sound all great. And I was like, well, of course Matt Rule took that job. He had NFL dreams for one. Was just surprised it was Carolina because the long-rumored teams were always the Giants and the Jets and those types of clubs. But it seemed like David Tepper was this, future forward-thinking, energetic, billionaire type of a guy. And it turns out he's just a head case with a lot of money, basically, is what we've seen so far. And now has, ground through a couple of coaches already and, maybe botched that first overall pick and picked the wrong guy. We'll see, though, because like you said, will Bryce Young ever have the ability to really show what he can do with the right people around him? So far, no. So C.J. Stroud, clearly the better of those two picks for right now at least, and has a very bright future, and I would think that he's got to be the odds-on favorite. But it's fun watching the electricity that he's brought to Houston, for sure. Can't wait to see what they can do with this opportunity this weekend. But Puka Nacua, Fred Warner's been long the most popular, I think, best BYU player in the pros. There's been others that have been more talked about, like Zach Wilson, or even Taysom Hill to some extent. But Fred Warner's their best pro. Well, now there's a debate because Puka Nacua is damn good. I mean, he is sensational. What a year for him. What a great start to his NFL career. And, yeah, I'm sure he'll get a lot of votes, and deservedly so. I mean, he's got a very exciting future in Los Angeles in front of him, and that was very cool to see. Was a big fan of his in college. Would never have expected, though, he just burst onto the scene the way that he has. You almost forget, like, oh, yeah, Cooper Kupp's catching a pass. He's on this team, too, because Puka's the guy now. Like, he's like the dude. So, yeah, it's been amazing to watch his very quick rise. But, yeah, that's a salty list. You mentioned the Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, what about DeAndre Swift? What about DeAndre Swift? There's a whole hand-wringing, and turns out Dan Campbell knows what he's doing. He has a pretty good grasp on.
And where's Swift now?
The Eagles.
The Eagles, yeah.
Playing with the team that we'll talk about a little bit later. That just completely felt, back at home now. But, yeah, that's a good list. And the Stroud and Nakua stories especially have been very cool to follow this season.
When he played in Waco back in 21, he had 5 catches for 168 yards and a touchdown when Hall was the quarterback. And they still got beat pretty badly. It was 38-24, but he was spectacular in that game.
In 22, he was banged up all year too. I think that's part of the reason he was a 5th round pick. He's hardly played in that season.
Yeah, because he was out in that game that went double overtime. If I remember,
he didn't play in it. God in heaven help Baylor if he had. But yeah, they. I want to go back to David Tepper for a second. If he starts a band and then gets a sexual harassment suit, he can get the Dan Snyder, James Dolan trifecta of terrible ownership. Because
he's on that edge already.
I mean, like,
how long has he owned the team?
2 years, 3 years?
No, it's been longer than that guy. He hired Matt Rule. So that was
so like 4 years.
So that was 2020.
2019.
2019.
I think of the year that Rule got here. 2020, 2019. Yeah.
So
since then.
So 4 years. He's going in his 4th year of ownership.
Remember the quote that I don't know if I had it on the show. I remember the quote was that David Tepper is going to fire anybody that tells him he's wrong. And that's not the way to run a franchise. Now, there's a way to tell your owner if you're wrong or not, but he is not going to have anybody that works for him that tells him when he's wrong.
Well, that'll work out really well, and it's already going swimmingly. So congrats, Panthers, on the incredible ownership there. Yeah, that dude's in for a rude awakening if he doesn't kind of get more professional with the whole ownership thing. Because that's the one thing. Those NFL owners don't play around, man. Like, especially if you make the league look bad in any way, they don't tolerate that stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure he's gotten a stern talking to. Maybe it'll matter, maybe it won't. But I thought when Rule went there, it seemed like everything was going to be really great and, all flowery, and this sounds like an opportunity you can't pass up, and I know Matt Rule wouldn't change anything, but I don't know, part of me is kind of like not happy that it didn't go well for him and that he got fired, but there is part of me that's kind of, I'm not upset that David Tepper turns out to be kind of a control freak and a bit of a head case, after all of that, so good luck to Bryce Young and the rest of those Carolina Panthers at this point with whatever he ends up doing as far as their future goes.
So think about this. That's a franchise. Who was their best quarterback? Was it their first?
It's Cam Newton.
Hell, I'm sorry. Yeah, Cam Newton. And he was there for a pretty good stretch, took him to a Super Bowl.
I would have ranked them Cam Newton, Jake Delhomme, Kerry Collins, Steve Berline.
All right. And a lot of those are back when they first opened up, right?
Yeah.
And Collins was the quarterback when they took him to the championship game the first year first or second year that Carolina was in existence because, was it Brunell took Jacksonville and Tom Coughlin the same year.
You guys may not remember this, but Jake Delhomme was the quarterback of the team in the Super Bowl, and you may not remember it because we saw a boob for like a second in that game.
Yeah, I remember
in
that.
Houston.
I remember that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, so
I don't remember it, but it was in Houston.
Like Jake Delhomme, Tom Brady was the quarterback on the other team, and we remember him. But the most things we remember at that Super Bowl are Tom Brady and Boob, and then Jake Delhomme.
Yes. Yeah, and maybe no particular order.
Yeah.
I remember covering that game and driving back from Houston, and I was on Sirius XM listening to postgame, and none of it was about the game. None of it was about the game.
Here's the thing I think is really, and Janet Jackson doesn't need me to take up for her, and this is an old argument, but I still am amazed to this day that Justin Timberlake, who did it, got no blowback.
No.
From that.
He's gotten plenty of blowback now
because
he totally didn't get any blowback, and it was all on Janet, and he kind of left her as the scapegoat and the faulty person in the whole arrangement, and it's made him look very bad in certain circles because he's kind of the punk that washed his hands of it and, didn't get the same repercussions that Janet got. I've definitely seen that over the years as there's a little bit of a not a hatred by any means, but there's a dislike that's grown from that incident for certain people because of the way it was all handled by him in particular.
Going to bring this up. Lorenzo Haynes in the chat room. Jay Gruden and RG3 had themselves a night last night. We'll get into that a little bit later on. There's from Jay Gruden. If I ever put a quarterback through what Philly is putting Jalen through, I apologize. Pick up the blitz. And then RG3 and Jay Gruden, they didn't have, it appears, the best of relationships. He said, say what? And that went on forever and ever and ever last night between former Redskins, it was Redskins head coach Jay Gruden and Robert Griffin III. All right, when we come back, just around the corner, Cody Bradford, Rangers pitcher, part of the World Series. They have a trophy coming to Waco tomorrow at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. He will be in attendance. He'll join us right now in the next segment. And then also Craig's Off the Radar, Paul's Top 5, John McClain, Todd Archer, and more. 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, brand new location now, is over a year old, and it is fantastic. In fact, I traded a couple of emails with Braden Embry. He's the one that's in charge of their marketing, and everything's going really well, as you would expect. They had a great business, a business that was in a location for decades and decades and decades, and they wanted to kind of keep that like where they were from the beginning in 1943 feel. But they knew they had to move into something bigger, better, faster, stronger, even with business being good, and they did, and it's now been better. And even one of the parts that's great about it is even all the product, pipe, steel, and metal, now they have different lengths of it where you had to go get it, maybe go get it cut or cut it yourself. Now they have different lengths of tubing and steel and pipe and metal and more. And their bays where they distribute the product that you buy is even better, and it was good, but now even more efficient. Pipe, steel, and metal, if you build metal buildings, they are experts at that and can help you find the right contractor they trust so you can also get the job done without all sorts of delays. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943, Loop 340 and Highway 6 just east of 35 in Waco at pioneerboys.com.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC. FDIC and equal housing lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Tomorrow at 11:30 at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame on I-35 in Waco, right off the campus of Baylor, there's a luncheon, the Lone Star Luncheon. The Rangers will be there. Not all of them. Eric Nadel, Hall of Fame broadcaster, will be there. Tony Beasley, Cody Bradford, who pitched at Baylor, Brett Hayes and Josh Smith, and the World Series Championship Trophy on display. The luncheon's 11:30 until, I think, 1:30. Then there's a media session, and then open to the public at 2:30 until 4. It's free if you want to get a picture, if it's available, and as long as they continue to take pictures of the championship trophy. Cody Bradford, who we talked to, remember the day after they won the World Series, joins us on 365 Sports. Have you come out of Cloud 9 yet?
Honestly, I still don't think so.
How much do you, or when did you start to get ready for the spring training?
I actually started the day after the World Series parade. I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot of downtime, but guys, I think in my situation, who still have a lot to prove and still need to make the team, have to go out and prove to the coaches at spring and be ready. And so for me, that involves getting ready the first day off season, starting to prep. So,
Cody, can you describe what the butterflies, the feeling, the emotions are from regular, like the way it jumps up from regular season to wild card to division to all that, like the way that like it ramps up until that World Series when you hear, here's your American League champion Rangers, before you even played a game at all in that. What is that like to deal with mentally, emotionally?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, honestly. I think it was an interesting dynamic with the amount of distractions that Major League Baseball can bring, especially with playoffs was new. But I think if you're able to just separate baseball from the distractions and say, hey, here's my job. I'm a relief pitcher. I come out of the bullpen. I need to get 3 outs. If you can just focus on the job at hand, it quiets down the distractions, and then you can use that excitement the playoffs brings, right? That the ALCS, that the World Series brings, to just heighten your senses and do your job even better. I guess that's the way I kind of went about it.
So besides the experience, Cody, of having pitched in some big games, big postseason games, that seasoning, what did you learn from that experience that you gathered from start to especially the finish last year? What makes you a better player now as a result of that, besides just the experience itself?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about myself as a pitcher. Learned kind of what works and what doesn't work at the big league level that I might have gotten away with in AAA or in AA last year or the year before, and then kind of just what I need to, what is expected of me more moving forward. And that helps me prepare in the off season a little bit better, helps me focus a little bit more on, maybe pitch design instead of, the strength and conditioning side. Maybe I need to work a little bit more on, adding an extra pitch instead of just getting stronger necessarily. So kind of how to tailor the off season, and then also just how to limit distractions during the season. I think I learned a lot about that this year, having some time in the big leagues.
Are the playoffs like like when you're in college, you can have like the full, 16, 18 week semester, right? And then you can have like the summer sessions that are like 9. Is that like the rapid fire? Like I better I'll learn about myself really quickly and what works and what doesn't more now, because you could have had a nice outing in August sometime, but maybe not everybody had their best stuff that day, as opposed to it's October 10th. You got to win this game and everybody's locked in.
Yeah, I think there's not as many opportunities in the playoffs. And so when you get one, you're absolutely right. Like it's a crash course on, you better be really, really in tune with what works for you. And it's once you get to the playoffs, it's not really about, hey, let me find out what works for me. Like you kind of need to know that beforehand, and then have confidence going in and be really confident in your stuff and how you want to attack each guy moving forward in the playoffs.
Cody, you were highly recruited. You ended up at Baylor. Obviously, you have Major League Baseball talent and arm, but when was the first time that somebody told you might be a pro prospect? And what was that conversation like?
It was probably my sophomore year of college at Baylor, coming off the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, had some success that year, and then got invited to the Cape Cod League and to try out for Team USA. And I think it was kind of when I was between the Cape Cod League and trying out for Team USA, when I was around some of the other really high caliber guys in college, that a couple guys and my coaches, Coach Strauss and Coach Rod at Baylor at the time, were like, hey, you have an opportunity to do something big here and to go as far as you want to go in baseball, but it's going to be up to you. And that was kind of the first time I heard that, and the first time I honestly started thinking about playing professionally. Was probably when I made the jump that summer.
So, Cody, I know when teams go off and win championships, a lot of times after the fact, somebody will say, like, I knew it, I could feel it, I could sense it. Did you get a special feeling about this team? Did you kind of have that feel early on that some people get, that something special is going to happen if, obviously things like health can stay the course?
No, I wish I could say yes to that, but honestly, like our last regular season series was in Seattle, and all we had to do was win 2 games that week to clinch the AL West, and we couldn't get it done. And we did make playoffs with a one win that weekend, but I think that was a real gut punch to most of us. I think most of the team was like, hey, the AL West is ours. We're going to make a deep playoff push. And then when we didn't clinch and we saw Houston clinch, we're kind of like, oh man, like our backs are up against the wall. From then on out, there's no expectations. We just want to play as much baseball and as good as baseball as we can.
Do you get to take the World Series trophy around like they do with the Stanley Cup?
I personally don't, but I think the event tomorrow, I think the Rangers Caravan, I think there is it's somebody's job to travel with that trophy wherever it goes. And to be honest, I'm not sure whose it is, but that would be a pretty cool job. I'm a clumsy person.
So if I was there and they handed me the trophy, I would be like, you better snap a picture fast because I'm handing it to the next person as soon as I can. Were you like that a little bit? I mean, it's the World Series trophy. You do want to hold it, but I would just be nervous that I'd be the guy that like dropped it.
No, we were so excited when we first got it in Arizona right after the game. We were so excited to pass it around and each take turns, with our families. And my wife and my parents and my sister were there, and everybody was lined up to hold the trophy and get a picture with their parents and family. So it's a really cool thing to do. And if you have an opportunity tomorrow to come out and do it, then I highly recommend it.
Cody, I hate asking this because I'm a lifelong Rangers fan, so there were so many cool moments throughout that postseason. As you know, it's hard to pick just one, like your favorite child, right? But, from the Houston series and then, to basically dominate Arizona, just what stands out to you, I guess, the most from that just run that if you had to start the story, so to speak, what are you starting with?
I besides winning every single road game, which I don't think any of us really realized until the final game and until it kind of came out in the press, my favorite individual moment was in game 1 of the World Series when Corey Seager tied it up with a 2-run homer in the bottom of the ninth. I had pitched earlier that game and pitched a scoreless inning and got to be in the dugout, so I was a little bit closer to the action. And gosh, the emotions that Corey showed after he hit that bomb, and then like the eruption from the crowd, that, and then Adolis, calling final in the bottom of the 11th. Those two moments are by far my favorite of the whole postseason.
Is Corey Seager the toughest hitter in Major League Baseball to get a book on, where you can go, well, I know that he can't hit this, so that's what I'm going to do, because I don't really think there's much, especially given the amount of work he puts into hitting, that you can fool him on?
Yeah, I think he's got to be one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, if not the best. And I mean, what a just locked in human being. Like, at all times of the day, as soon as he gets to the field to when he leaves, like, he's always locked in thinking about something. And he takes that to every at bat. And I mean, I'm so glad he's on my team and I don't have to pitch against him. I'll say that.
What was the loudest moment? Was it Seager in the first game against the Diamondbacks, or was it perhaps an Adolis homer?
Oh gosh, to be honest, I think I blacked out on both homers. So for me, in my own head, I was screaming just as loud for both, but I really couldn't tell you which one was louder.
That Corey one was just so clutch, though. Like, in that moment, I mean, you guys are about to lose that game, and then you need, like, a miracle, and here's the miracle, man, stepping up and just cranking one. But how he's asking about, do you think that having the indoor, I've asked a few Rangers beat writers, but you can speak better to this, do you think that was an aid as well in the Rangers organization getting over the top? You know, the conversation, the hot summers at the ballpark in Arlington, just how much of an advantage do you think that there is having that indoor ballpark as opposed to the olden days, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely keeps guys fresher longer into the season. So whereas you like at the old stadium in Arlington, you might start having guys poop out, honestly, after All-Star break when the summer gets really hot and it starts to drag on, or gets really hot. And now, like, you kind of stay fresh all year. And I think, like, Simeon could attest to that. The guy didn't miss hardly any games this year. He might have played every single one, started every single one, and, like, you just don't have that in Texas. So definitely at the old stadium in the heat, that's probably a record that would have never happened. But, now it does because we got indoor and we got AC.
So DeGrom's out for a while, and obviously Scherzer's out for a while. Evaldi had an unbelievable postseason like he did one year, of course, or like he's done with Boston. Do you pay attention? How do you look at the depth chart? Like you mentioned, you still have to prove yourself, even though you did with huge moment in the postseason. How do you kind of go about looking at the depth chart with what you have with the rotation and also in the bullpen?
Yeah. You don't look too much at the depth chart, but you just understand that there's going to be opportunities and kind of wherever that comes, whether it's in a bullpen role or a starter role, whatever that role may be, right? I just want to be a contributor. And so kind of planning the off season, it's not really for a certain role that I'm planning for. It's just to be the best version of myself going into spring training and whatever that looks like. And so, you don't want to look too much at the depth chart because there's so many moves that can happen in an off season that's just out of your control. And so you just try to control, your effort and your attitude moving forward. And so looking to next year, whatever opportunity and role is available, that's how I want to contribute to the team.
Cody, I asked you this when we had a chance to visit with you after you got back from the parade and all the things that went down with the World Series about Mitch Thompson. Tough first year, very tough year. But it appears as if you, Max Muncy, and some others that have been in that program before trying to get him at least a fair or even playing ground. Is that still there? Is that momentum that's building?
Yeah, I had time to talk and sit down and talk with Coach Thompson this offseason, kind of right after I got back from some offseason stuff. And gosh, he's definitely got a good mindset moving forward for this season, and the improvements that has already been made from last season, and just the excitement that he has around the guys coming in. And I think there were definitely some learning curves coming over from MCC, and just in college baseball in general with the NIL stuff. That's a whole different game that I think Baylor's going to have to learn how to compete with other big Power 5 schools like a TCU or an LSU, teams that are going to have a lot of outside money coming in. Baylor's just going to have to learn, and it's going to be on me, the alumni, the boosters, the fans, people that want Baylor to succeed are going to have to start putting some money out there. As odd as that sounds, like we're going to have to start helping out the team and doing what we can do from the outside to get the caliber of players they're going to help the program moving forward.
All right, you're a pitcher. You're going to give up home runs. You're going to lose games. That's part of the mix. You also won big moments. Without you, they don't have the postseason run because you came up with a huge moment. Is it like being a cornerback who gives up a touchdown pass or a kicker who misses a field goal? Is that the same mentality as a pitcher?
Yeah, I think you have to have a short memory. The most important pitch is the one that you're making. You can't think too much about the next pitch, and you can't think too much about the pitch you just made that might have gone over the fence or might have gotten hit really hard for a line drive out. All you can do is control the pitch you're making, and in that sense, yeah, I guess it's kind of like a field goal kicker. You just control that kick right there.
Congratulations. We'll see you tomorrow at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, the World Series Championship Trophy. Cody Bradford, Rangers pitcher, with us on 365 Sports. Cody, thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Thanks for having me.
Cody Bradford, good dude. And he went to Aledo High School, known for what they do with their football program with, 11 state titles in football and another one this past year, but had a great career in high school and then at Baylor, and now a player with the World Series champion Rangers. All right, when we come back, we're not done. Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. A little after 5 o'clock, Todd Archer, ESPN.com, and Hall of Famer John McClain, and Paul's Top 5 in about an hour. And this is 365 Sports.
Don't get a truck, I should say. Get the truck over at Richard Carr right now. That's the GMC Sierra. It's got power, it's got strength, it's got a stunning interior as well for you to check out. It's a truck that has it all, and right now there are hundreds of trucks on the lot ready to move at a great price over at Richard Carr. You can save thousands in holiday savings on cars and trucks, and with a trade, qualified buyers can, for example, save $10,000 on a GMC Sierra SLT crew cab. Plus, if you are a military or first responder, you can save an additional $500 as well. So there is some money to save right now in the GMC Sierra models, but get on over to Richard Carr to check out their stunning interiors, the sexy exteriors, and just the comfort of the ride in a new GMC Sierra. But if you're not looking to buy new, they can also hook you up with the pre-owned vehicles as well. They trade for the best. They have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock, 100 used cars and trucks to choose from, all with 172-point inspection taken care of, and the Richard Carr seal of approval. And the financing goal at Richard Carr is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So there are some offers that you can take advantage of right now at Richard Carr. There's a lot of construction going on around the dealership, but there's plenty of ways to get in touch with them. They've been in business for 27 years here in Central Texas, and over that time period have built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, and have also proven their merit when it comes to customer service. They are one of you, proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome to Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Got a few stories to take a look at here as we do normally on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. Typically try to get a little bit out of college football, but sometimes just timing-wise and guests-wise or whatever, there are some things that we don't quite get to, and in particular with Alabama, there's been so much movement on this coaching staff, it's hard to kind of keep up with it all, quite honestly. They're moving ferociously there with Kalen DeBoer now at the helm to get that staff ready to go and get all their hires in a row so that they can start moving on to maintaining that roster. But one note did just come down, and it's somewhat local related because a former Baylor guy through and through, and most recently the head football coach of the University of Buffalo, Maurice Linguist, or Mo Linguist, is now headed to Alabama. Another head coach hire for Kalen DeBoer. A little bit of a trend here. But the 39-year-old was at previously, as you see here, A&M, Mississippi State, Dallas Cowboys, and as I mentioned, most recently the Buffalo head coach. So, yeah, that courtesy of ESPN originally, but Mo Linguist, who people around here know a little bit about, he is now joining Kalen DeBoer's first staff there at Alabama.
Yeah, with Kane Womack and now Mo Linguist joining that staff, Kalen DeBoer is hiring other Kalen DeBoers. Also, you know, it's interesting. You know, let's throw another log on the fire of you're not playing the same game when you can go and hire a head coach to be not just a coordinator. Like, that's Kane Womack. Mm-hmm. Maurice Linguist is going to be the defensive backs coach more than likely. So, you know, he's leaving a head coaching job to be a position coach somewhere else. Now, look, he's got that head coaching job on his resume, and he's been a good head coach at Buffalo, but you know, this can set him on a better path than the job at Buffalo can, which is kind of saying a lot about, you know, where we are on, you know, who's in what league and who's not.
Linguist was also at Iowa State for part of his career in his resume. It looks like DeBoer, like you said, is getting a lot of DeBoers, a lot of group of five type guys, although he was at Washington. And I see reaction at times, well, wait a minute, because he's not at LSU or he's not at Georgia or he's not at wherever. These guys can coach, man. They're really good coaches, and so good for Kalen DeBoer trying to fill up his staff with a little bit of a unique way of doing it, too.
So Mo Linguist, a former Baylor guy, and been around the block, A&M, et cetera, been around a lot of different schools, Mississippi State, looking like a defensive assistant. I guess proper terms of the correct title will get ironed out there. Eventually, we'll see that officially. But, he is now joining and will work with the secondary, that Alabama staff for Kalen DeBoer. So just wanted to pass that along. That's very interesting as he puts this all together. And also today, officially announced Ron Roberts as executive head coach, co-defensive coordinator, and linebackers coach at Florida. Previously worked with Billy Napier at Louisiana, was just at Auburn for 1 year, and then was at, prior to that at Baylor here for a couple years. And I remember last year when Baylor got off to a rocky start and Ron Roberts had kind of he always does like sort of the subliminal tweets or whatever. But he had one that was very clearly directed at Dave Aranda. And then, the part of that is, though, it's like, oh, okay, let's go look at Auburn's season. How are you guys doing over there? So it's like kind of, pot calling the kettle black in so many ways. So I don't know what was what in the wash when it came out between Ron Roberts and Dave Aranda, but his stay at Auburn was short, and now he reunites with Billy Napier officially joining that Florida staff, which you just wonder how much rope do they have down there in Gainesville right now? How much tolerance or patience do they have? And what are the expectations, and how quickly can they meet those expectations? Because it's only going to get harder now. I mean, you're bumped down 2 spots automatically, one would think, with Texas and Oklahoma joining the fray. So, I know the schedules won't be all equal. They're going to be spread out much more so now, but they've got a very difficult one. And they got, the short end of the stick out of probably all the schools in the SEC when theirs came out. So that's not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. Like I mentioned, you got 2 other programs who are better than you right now coming in. So, it's Ron Roberts going to be part of the plan to try and get this thing righted. But we knew him. I liked him well enough.
Him too,
and sad that it didn't work out at Auburn, but good luck to him in Gainesville.
Well, it feels like Florida didn't sign Greg Sankey's birthday card or something. I mean, they're like, oh, happy birthday. Love Alabama. Oh, have another great year.
Alabama
Sincerely
didn't have to
Vanderbilt.
no, you're right.
And then he's going, and he looks, and he's like, hey, did Florida not sign this thing? That's rude.
It seems and
then all of a sudden it's like, oh.
That's what I don't like about the expansion of conferences. And this is not complaining, but it's what I loved about the Big 12. Everybody played everybody. There was no skip 3 or 4 or 8 of the teams in the conference. That doesn't mean those other conferences didn't have really good, hard treks to get to a championship or division title. It was everybody played everybody, and nobody got themselves a mulligan season or 2.
Yeah, I like that as well. I mean, you didn't get to hide from anybody, whether intentionally or not, and you knew at the end of the road, like, these teams had all been battle-tested the same exact way, and I think that's my biggest gripe with the, I guess, expanding conferences is that whole gag about the fact that A&M still hasn't played at Georgia, and they've been in the SEC for, 10 years now at this point. That whole thing, that's going to be more and more common now because you get to 18, 20-team conferences. I know the SEC or the Big Ten are like, well, we'll do this to where everybody's guaranteed to play everybody within 5-year time frame. But it's like you knew every other year you're going to Austin. You knew where you're going. It's just a matter of what the dates were. And now, I mean, you keep expanding the conferences. It's back to where you don't play a team that's in the same conference for 8 years at a time, potentially. And so
you can get teams as they come and go with the pecking order, too.
Right.
And might play somebody, but by the time you do 3 or 4 or 5 years later, well, they're not who they were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago before that.
Yeah, and I know this isn't the best example because Texas and Oklahoma certainly feel like their schedules are a lot better than they were. But I do think that there's also, though, this sort of, I guess, marketing thing that kind of goes on for some fans where they talk about the Big Ten and the SEC now and how daunting they are, but then they act like everybody's playing all the best teams every week. And it's like, no, you're still getting well, I know Rutgers was actually good this past year, but you know what I mean? It's not like every week. When you talk about super leagues, you think of every week you're playing LSU, and then you're playing Auburn, and then you're playing Texas, and you're playing Oklahoma, and you're playing all these biggest brand names. But no, they're still sprinkled in there, some of the other schools as well. So it's not like the elite of the elite. It's getting closer to that. But the bigger you get, the less that you get some of those matchups, even though they're easier to get because you're now in the same conference, but it's just not going to be one week after another murderer's row. And it's probably by design because you don't want that. People ask, like, well, what's the point of Vanderbilt? What's the academics and also the fact that you want a mulligan every once in a while, or you want that team that's not Georgia on your schedule every single week. But, that's all very interesting. And moving on here, let's see a couple of other notes when it comes to the NFL. Yesterday we were watching – and Terrell Bernard, we were watching the playoff game with the Bills, and Terrell Bernard, former Baylor linebacker, goes down in that game, and it looked bad. It looked like he was in a lot of pain. He had to get carted off of the field, and the Bills go on to win 31-17, but they did look a little bit leakier on defense, especially in the middle once he exited that game. The Steelers actually made that a little bit uncomfortable for a moment. Like, had they been able to capitalize, had a play go their way, that thing might have gotten a little bit more interesting there at the end. But Buffalo's able to score late and push that lead up and rest easily. But Terrell Bernard is not ruled out for the year quite yet, and I figured that was going to be the case. I figured we were going to see, a report about him tearing his knee up or whatever the case may be. But as of right now, Terrell Bernard is considered day-to-day as an ankle injury, but there was no fracture. It was a high ankle sprain, so he's going to probably miss some time. But, man, I could not believe that when I saw late last night that he was not out for the year or ruled out for the remainder of the playoffs already. Now, maybe he doesn't see the field. All will depend on how long they keep playing. But he is listed as day-to-day with an ankle injury, which is awesome news considering what it could have been, which was a season-ending injury.
Well, broken ligaments, whatever.
Torn ligaments,
when you're out,
torn ACL.
Like you guys said,
anything,
when you're taken off the field on a cart, it's either back, neck, or bad, no matter what. And for it to be an ankle injury is a huge break for the Bills and also for Terrell Bernard.
Yeah, it absolutely was. So that the NFL ratings were massive over the weekend. Cowboys and Green Bay Packers, 40 million viewers at one point for Cowboys and Packers. It averaged 40 million viewers throughout. It was up 20% from the Giants and Vikings a year ago, which had a little over 30 million. But huge success all the way around. It peaked at 43.4 million viewers, the second largest audience of the entire season, second only to Thanksgiving Day between the Commanders and the Cowboys, as they are very much a draw, and that's never changed despite the records and the ups and downs of their actual teams. They remain a huge draw, and 40 million viewers on average, with 43.4 the high note there to watch that big Green Bay victory. So I was just curious, Paul, I know we'll talk Cowboys in this next hour, but where are you on Mike McCarthy, and what do the Cowboys do now at this point?
Look, I'm at the point of...
Are you still in mourning? Do we need to wait a week for you to get over this?
Mourning isn't the right word, because I've been in mourning since 1996. But, this is, they haven't, since the year first year they didn't go back to the Super Bowl. It's just been a long period where I roam the streets in a long black veil. But
You sold your soul for the Red Sox to win.
Maybe Florida State that same year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know where it, look, he's won 12 games 3 years in a row. So,
right.
That's the hardest part of this. But the issue with Jason Garrett wasn't the regular season either. They're still running into the same problem of they get to the playoffs and they always have one thing that they get by with all year because the regular season's different. But then that's the thing that teams exploit. And this year, it was the run defense. The run defense was not good. And they were able to mask it because they would play teams that were not the 49ers, and those teams were not necessarily good. So Micah Parsons and those guys who were elite defenders would just feast and do really well. And so it was kind of hidden because if you're up by 20 points, the team's not going to run. So all of a sudden you've got this great run defense. Yeah. But if they were ever playing from behind, the other thing it seems, and this is a through line through Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy, I don't know what it is, but it seems like whenever they're dealt adversity early, that it sticks with them longer than teams that win.
Like a guy getting knocked down early in a fight that cannot recover.
Yeah, they might get a couple of good punches in, but, to steal Philadelphia's avatar, they're not Rocky. Rocky would get pummeled by Creed or Drago or whoever, and then he would just stick with it. Like, they're the ones who take the punch from Drago and then go back to the corner and be like, the guy's hitting really hard. I don't know what it is. They've got, like, they're really close, and they're better than most teams in the league when it comes to, repeat performances season after season, but that doesn't matter if you're not winning the trophy.
Ratings are going to be great. Merchandise will always be through the roof. Glitz, glamour, the stadium, all of that will never change no matter how good or bad they are. But I heard somebody say this. If you think about the players, the individual players, a lot of them are as maybe involved in their own individual brands as they are the guy that's sitting next to him in the locker room.
Yeah, I think that's also what happens after you lose, is all that stuff starts to flutter out of, like, all of a sudden it's like, well, our players are selfish and they're pampered. Like, because I listened to a post-game show, and what do you think the first call was? So long as Jerry's the owner and he's pampering these. I've heard that for 25 effing years at this point, dude. It's not just that at this stage. Like, it's just, let's say it's bad luck more than it's that at this point, because a lot of players are pampered. It's not like 31 other teams are chewing nails for breakfast, and the Cowboys are having filet mignon.
San Jose State was. I mean,
they that's all they could afford. But
I get it.
But I hear that, and I think there is something to the Jerry pampering them. But I think, like, at this point, there's got to be something more than just that. But anyways, 40 million viewers, over 40 at one point in that game at its high point. There was also another interesting ratings note, because, the NFL is going to crush it in ratings, but that was the high note. But the other one that was interesting was the Peacock game, because there was a lot of wondering how the Peacock NFL playoff game would do. I subscribe to Peacock as it is. I actually cut a lot of subs at the end of last year. Nobody cares. But, even though it's $40 a month all added up, and it's only $400. Like, I don't need it, though. Like, I can spend that somewhere else. But Peacock I actually have, because it makes it easy to watch any WWE pay-per-view that I randomly would want to watch live. And also it's got On Patrol Live, which is a guilty, like, background noise show for me. So that's why I have it. And it's cheaper than all of the other services. It's only like $5 or whatever. Yeah. I don't know what their actual numbers were for signups, but 23 million people watched the Peacock game.
Which is higher than most every college football game played, but perhaps one or two.
Yeah.
And that's streaming.
Other than, like, the Ohio State, Michigan probably, and I don't even know if that got to 23
maybe
off the top
Michigan
of my head.
and Alabama. Maybe. I don't know.
And look, they also had a bit of luck here in that a few months ago, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift started dating each other.
That helped.
And they had that game to be able to put on it and I had a couple of
You think that was accident?
No.
Hell
and
no.
look, I would have, like, if I had just heard that story or, like, read it on Twitter of, like, oh, this was propelled by Swifties and all this, I'm like, yeah, maybe a little bit. But 3 different friends of Amanda's from different parts of the country that are all Swifties all asked her to ask me if I liked Peacock enough, my subscription, that it would be worth keeping it past this thing. And I was like, my first one, I was like, what? And then she has a friend who I met when we were in Nashville who is a huge Taylor Swift fan and started watching the Chiefs just because of Taylor Swift. So, yeah, it's real.
Yeah, it's weird, too, because you'd think this is like the typical, like, little girls and they just idolize. It's like, no, it's grown women. It's grown women who are, like, obsessing over this girl. And, it's crazy. But they are, they're like the Beehive, right? Like, they are loud and proud, and they show up and they support, and there's a lot of them, and they have definitely made a difference in the NFL ratings to at least some degree, one would think. But as far as the questions about, well, are people going to turn into a streaming game? Will people sign up? I want to see information on the subs, but this to me indicates that you're only going to see more games on streaming as far as NFL playoff. 23 million for Miami and Kansas City was the final tally there. So, yeah, that was a huge deal as far as a successful outing goes. And I think that's the power of the NFL combined with the power of Taylor Swift. But I did go look at college football games. Only 2 had more. Ohio State, Michigan didn't crack 20, so they didn't quite live up to that. But Michigan-Washington had 25-05, which was more, and Michigan-Alabama. So the two Michigan playoff games, and the Michigan-Alabama had 27.76 million. But those were the only two college football games all year long that beat the streaming playoff game number for the NFL with the Chiefs and Dolphins there.
On the streaming number, I saw this from @Sports TV Ratings. The guy does a great job. There were about 500,000 viewers in Miami via local television, and around 900,000 to 1 million in Kansas City. So that's away from the 23 million, but there were thoughts it might be more than that. That's like a 6 to 7% difference, but 23 million average repeat.
Yeah, the NFL just keep lucking into
money.
things.
It prints money, bullion money, gold.
The only way they could get more is if like Beyonce and Jay-Z got divorced, and then Beyonce started dating
Taylor Swift.
But Beyonce started dating like Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and to think that they got all these ratings with all the people that quit watching years ago.
Yeah.
So just imagine what they would be if all those people came back in droves and they'd actually, have an even higher number. But no, I'm kidding. Obviously, I think that's everybody's tuned into the NFL, but more so than ever because of a superstar musician and her relationship. That's certainly playing into it. And I think also the superstar quarterback and the superstar tight end and those folks are drawing eyeballs as well. And that could go over to the Miami side. Some of those guys drawing eyeballs as well. But just interesting to see that many numbers or that high of a number for streaming. So, yeah, that's not going anywhere. There was a lot of articles written, too, about like, will this be the NFL's first failure, or will streaming, whatever? Well, it worked out tremendously well for them. So there you go with that. A couple of other notes here that I had was, for one, on the coaching front, Mike Tomlin has apparently indicated to Steelers players that he plans to coach next season. So he walked off and away from the podium the other night when somebody brought up his contract and his future. He didn't even say anything. He just walked off to end the press conference. And now we are hearing that despite all the speculation about what could happen there, that Mike Tomlin will be back to coach the Steelers in 2024. But meanwhile, another note is that after last night's loss, a rumor has it, speaking of the Kelsey family, that Jason Kelsey will be retiring after 13 seasons.
There's no longer a rumor. He's done.
So he's done, okay, officially. Good. So that was confirmed then. So he is done after 13 seasons after that loss. And, man, what a game that was to watch last night. Just kind of quickly, I guess, get your thoughts on what we got to see. I mean, obviously Buffalo was on TV as we left, and the Bills take care of business. I provided that update on Terrell Bernard. Glad he's just okay. But then Philly and Tampa Bay, I mean, an ass-whooping is what it turned out to be. Baker Mayfield, good on you, pal, finding your second, third, fourth life, whatever this is at this point. And Tampa Bay, another great story as they move on with a 32-9 victory.
Yeah, I think Baker Mayfield's a guy whose personality fits Tampa, the fan base, really well.
I think he's also very humbled.
Yeah, he is. Like, he's a new, like, I've always liked Baker, and
me too.
None of his I always found him funny and not like people like.
You liked him if he played for the team you liked, and he didn't play for the team I liked, and I liked him. And there's some that just don't.
I just think they don't
he's a
like. They
ass.
don't.
Okay, so
they
what?
don't get like. Well, look, and he's funny, and so like if you put him in like the I grade comedians kind of way, like, all right, maybe he's not for you, but he's just trying to be funny. He has no ill will towards anything, and he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. But I've always enjoyed Baker. I'm really happy he had that playoff win last night. I hope the Bucs sign him to a nice deal so he can stay there and build some consistency. It seems like they've got kind of a nice thing going, and he can help bridge them to the next era for sure. As far as the Eagles go, man, you lose your coordinators like they did, and Nick Sirianni
and the defensive line, or a lot of them,
yeah, and you lost what you lost, and then guys get like Fletcher Cox is older, and they've got some young guys that are good, but schematically they were a lot different this year. And I think the game that the Cowboys lost to them that was really close, that the Cowboys kind of squandered and were this close to winning that game because of some little tiny mistakes they made. That game put out the book on the Eagles, and then the rest of the league saw and took advantage of it down the year.
San Francisco's Bosa said they put out.
That's true. Okay, so but those 2 weeks right there, the San Francisco and the Cowboys, because the Cowboys, I guess, maybe took San Francisco's book and they just weren't good enough that week to do anything about it. And then after that, it was just the secret's out, and they they had no answer for everything. Plus, Jalen Hurts was pretty much – he had 5 different injuries this year.
A middle finger. He was just not as explosive with his legs. They stopped the push because they went above it and got to his shoulders and pulled him away. First time that's happened all year long. I just think that they became a disenchanted locker room. I think that some of those guys started to just mail it in. Give Tampa Bay credit. They thumped them pretty good.
Yeah, Bosa said, we made Jalen stay in the pocket and escape outside instead of those B gaps, and it paid off because he's looking to run every play, so you just have to be disciplined and not give him a quick escape route where he can get to his guys quick. That's what Bosa said. And they also failed on the Philly push last night as the Bucs D-line got underneath Kelsey and company. So, yeah, it all just started to fall apart for them. But that was a interesting game to watch. It just wasn't as competitive as you would have liked. But now we're set. I'll close it out with this. Texans at Ravens coming up on Saturday. Packers at 49ers on Saturday night. And then Sunday, Bucs at Lions and Chiefs at Bills. We'll close out the weekend with a early evening kickoff there on Sunday night. So there you go. There's your final 8 as we creep towards the Super Bowl. There's a few things off the radar.
Garrett, get up the one I just showed you with Silas Bolden.
Yeah.
Oregon State, dual threat type of weapon. Not a surprise here. Texas, again, replenishing the wide receiver room that had been rated because of eligibility in the NFL draft. They get Silas Bolden, who's also a kick returner. Had a kick return for a touchdown last year for the Beavers.
Yeah, nice pickup for them. Really like it.
He's a really good player. So he was fantastic for Oregon State. And, yeah, they're retooling that wide receiver room. Got the young man from Bama, now Bolden. And have they made any other moves? Matthew Golden. So, they've addressed the losses of Worthy and Mitchell. And Who were you saying?
Isaiah Bond that they added.
Oh, that's mentioned the Alabama kid.
Okay.
Now they got to figure out tight end, and I think Benjamin Urasek from Stanford is.
They'll be
giving
fine.
That a look.
They'll refill who they want.
I don't worry too much about the offense.
No,
really. They have their running backs are set. They're totally fine there.
I do think that's the one. The wide receivers, I think will be fine. The thing I'm curious about is because Jadavian Sanders is pretty unique.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of guys who play that position, built like him, run like him, move like him. How do you? Do they miss him a little bit even if they get a good guy?
They will.
He's probably not going to be like that. By the way, Ross Bjork to Ohio State's official now.
Yeah, it's official. Okay, here's a note from Ed Werder on the Cowboys before we come back with Todd Archer on that. First team to win 12 games, 3 straight seasons, and failed to make the conference championship in any of them since the AFC-NFC merger 53 years ago. When we come back, Todd Archer, Hall of Famer John McClain, Paul's Top 5, great off the radar, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Pizza lovers get it. 5 locations in Waco, the fastest growing pizza brand in the country. 5 locations in Waco, and it was just a handful of years ago there were none. Now they have it in Hewitt, Woodway, and also in Robinson, China Spring, and in Belmead. They're pepperoni magnifico. It's a pizza. You can get it thin crust or thick crust, whatever you want. It is loaded. There's no space anywhere. It's pepperoni across the board. And then there's the sausage magnifico. You get the picture. And then combine the two. It is loaded with meat, with pepperoni and Italian sausage. Also, you want pizza bowls. They have those if you don't want a full pizza. Wings, salads, sandwiches, soft drinks. Bob Mock, the owner at Marco's Pizza. 5 locations. Marcos.com. You can order online, pick up if you want, have it delivered. Pizza lovers get it.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Ring in the new year with unbeatable savings on the new 2023 Ram trucks during the wrap-up-the-year sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Take advantage of this limited-time opportunity and start the new year in style. Shop our great selection in-store or online today.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com in White House, Texas, just outside of Tyler in East Texas. Aged Wagyu beef and so much more you have on your ranch. And what is next?
We are planning another auction January 30th. This auction will be an in-person, online also, a live auction like we did the first time. You come out to the ranch, dinner is going to be provided. It'll be a variety of steaks, hamburger, sausage, tri-tip, brisket, roast, all of the different Wagyu cuts. It's going to be on a Tuesday. It's on January 30th, and it'll kind of be your get ready for Valentine's dinner auction.
We, of course, have a great relationship, partnership with what you do. How has the reaction been as your name and what you guys do at TexasBeefHouse.com grown?
It has grown a lot over this last year. I kind of made a joke at the beginning of 2023 and told my husband, 2023 is going to be our year. I don't know what we're going to do, but something with 2023, it's going to be our year. And we started our auction. So many things have changed for us this year, which has been for the better. So we just want to tell all of our customers, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for your continued support in the year of 2023, and we hope that you return to us in 2024.
And they will. Repeat customers, because the product is amazing. Aged Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Todd Archer, national NFL columnist and analyst for ESPN.com. Todd, thank you for your time. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. The Cowboys have everything at their fingertips when it comes to what they want, all of what it is, the glitz, the glamour, the stadium, etc., the facilities, the star, everything. And they have a lot of really talented players. So what is missing in your opinion?
Smoke, if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where Jerry is going right now and wondering what it is, because this team has 9 first team, second team, all pro players, a bunch of pro bowlers, as we know, largely considered a really good roster. You look at what they did in the regular season offensively, number 1 in points, number 5 in yards, defensively where they ranked and the players that they have. And you just wonder why it doesn't come together when it matters most. And, you know, the easy, Jerry's the common denominator for the last 28 years. Well, Jerry's put together this team. Let me change that. Jerry's been around who put together this team with the help of Will McClay and Stephen Jones. So you can't blame Jerry for that. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if the Cowboys have a legit answer other than just saying, well, maybe the next coach is the guy. And you do that, well, that opens up a whole nother can of worms you might not want to open. So it's just they're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario right now, and that's never a good place to be.
Todd, we'll get to whether Mike McCarthy is employed there next week in a minute, but it seems to me like they because they're good at, like, when they have an issue that's really exploited. Last year is they really didn't have any playmakers outside of CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard. And then in the San Francisco game when Tony Pollard got hurt, it was just you put Dak, who was not having a good year, in a position where it's all on him and CD, and they just couldn't figure it out. Now they've kind of solved that issue, but they didn't really get around to being able to be dominant stopping the run against teams that are good at running the ball, and that undid them. But it seems like when they solve that, then there'll be another thing that pops up like whack-a-mole that undoes them in the playoffs. So what is it about them that they can't address more than one problem per offseason?
But you see, like, that's every team though, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, so that's not just the Cowboys issue. That's a lot of people that have that same deal that they have to go through. And I would, because they came out of last year thinking, hey, you got to throw up the run defense, and they used their first round pick on Mozzie Smith. Didn't shore it up. Barely played as a rookie. Major questions about what he can be, right? You know, but they went out and they traded for Stephon Gilmore. That helped their secondary problems and turned a strength with Diggs and Deron Bland, who led them in picks as a rookie too. That made that stronger. Linebacker, they never really addressed, you know, especially after Van Der Esch got hurt. But obviously signing Shaq Leonard was not the answer either, because what did he do in Philadelphia? But yeah, this is, it's not, you don't, I'm sorry if I'm stammering here.
That's okay.
In order to win a Super Bowl, not everything's going to be perfect. And it wasn't perfect for the Patriots when they were in their dynasty days, that old Brady covered up a lot of stuff. They had guys hurt, I'm sure. They had shortages at position. Their receivers one year were David Givens, Troy Brown, and David Patton. Who remembers those guys? Troy Brown, really good player, but again, it wasn't like it was Randy Moss the entire time Tom was excelling up there. So I just think, like, luck plays a part of it, and I hate saying that, but you just need to play. Your stars need to play their best when it's the biggest moment. And tell me of their stars on Sunday against Green Bay, who played their best? Not one of them played their best.
You know, Fred Coleman's a kid I covered in high school, was on that team too. He was a player they picked up mid-season that made a big catch in a game against the Jets in their first Super Bowl with the Patriots. So you got to have a few of those guys too. So, all right. Yeah, you mentioned the stars. Nobody stepped up. Micah Parsons had a couple of tackles, had an early pressure. Dak was awful. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb looked like he was disengaged almost after the first incomplete pass. How can your best players not make plays? All in the same game. All in the same game.
Yeah. Again, you know, and that's, you know, you can look at it. CD ended up with over 100 yards. Michael Gallup ended up with over 100 yards. All of it was hollow for a lot of respect, for all intents and purposes. So, you know, and that's the question of why that's happened countless times, regardless of who the coach is, who the quarterback is, who the star receiver is. That when you have it as good as you have it, you better capitalize. And now I'm going back 16 years. 2007 continues to haunt the Cowboys because they were the best team in the NFC, home field advantage, and they lose to the Giants who go on to win the Super Bowl. 2016, Dak's rookie year, home field advantage. Don't get it done in the first round. Aaron Rodgers throws a dagger at him. And now this one, you're set up for a run with 2 home playoff games where you're 16-0. And you don't get it done. It's mind-boggling how often that has happened to this team. And the only answer is continue to put yourself in those positions, right? But eventually you better come through, or else it's more of the same. And I don't know what to tell people about, hey, here's the hope that you have for next year. I really don't. Sorry I'm a light of everybody. I'm firing everybody up to go buy some tickets right now.
Todd, when it comes to Mike McCarthy, I mean, 3 straight 12-win seasons, but only 1 playoff win in the 4 years he's been there. And, again, there are things that I think are better than Jason Garrett was there, and things that feel a little bit the same as when Jason Garrett was there. But is his situation maybe exacerbated by the fact of who is available? And I'm not just talking about Bill Belichick, but like Mike Vrabel and guys like that who might have a little bit of a different emotional style than a Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I think you make a good point with that, because there are times, right, when Garrett was going through the 8-8 stuff, where we probably looked at the pool of candidates in where we went 2012, 2013, and say, who are you going to get who's better? And I'm sure there were guys that we just I can't think of right now off the top of my head talking to y'all. But there are guys now where you look at it and you say, well, those guys could be better. And is Jerry willing to make that move of a Belichick? And I think they could work together. Parcells obviously worked here. So, hey, anything is possible. Harbaugh, I don't see that one, because I think he would want to have some personnel control. Clearly, that's not going to be the case here. Especially, and what the Cowboys do well is personnel with Will McClay doing all that stuff. So that's not their problem. And then you get to Mike Vrabel. I mean, show me his playoff success. Now, he's had player success, and he can speak the language, and he won Super Bowls in New England as a player. And his teams in Tennessee were largely pretty good until the last couple of years, and he was a coach of the year just 2 years ago. So maybe he has some of the Belichick-ness, if that's a word, with a way to speak to today's player to get them to play. And certainly he's a tough guy, and you would like to think that would rub off on the team the way it seems to have rubbed off from our guy Dan Campbell up in Detroit on his team. But the longer this goes, I don't know what to think. I'm waiting for the smoke to come from the star, like when they name the Pope, right? Do we know that Mike's back, or we know that Mike's gone? They're going to be naming a new coach. But right now, it's just kind of radio silence. And McCarthy's doing his exit interviews with the players. Those probably could finish up today, I'd imagine. Maybe it stretches into tomorrow. Then he meets with Jerry. So maybe we get McCarthy at some point tomorrow for the end of season wrap up. We're also supposed to get the general manager of the team for the NFL media policy. I don't think that's going to happen, but hopefully it can. So we certainly have plenty of questions for Jerry in that regard. But this is not, we haven't gotten to Dak and his contract and what you have to do there. So there's so many things that they have to do that I don't think they were planning to do this quickly, because they thought they were going to win at least one playoff game and have another one this weekend against Detroit.
Bunch of players in the free agent market pretty quickly. Now, the easy thing, and it's lazy, doesn't mean it's not right, but the easy thing is it's Jerry's fault. You brought that up earlier. But how much would it help, or would it make a difference at all, if Jerry just wasn't always so accessible?
See, I mean, I guess that he wasn't accessible from 2003 to 06 as much when Parcells was here. I don't remember going to Jerry press conferences after games when Bill was the coach. I don't remember. I would imagine he was on the radio, but I really don't know. But those teams didn't win either. So I think that turns into the red herring stuff, right? Where it's like, well, Jerry just wants the attention, and Jerry undermines his coach, and Jerry undermines his players with the things that he says. I've never once had a player to say to me, I wish Jerry would just shut up. Even privately, we don't need that. You know what I'm saying? And I maybe I'm underplaying all that stuff, but it comes down to players playing their best at the best when they're needed at the biggest moments. And that's what's not happened. Not because of what Jerry said on the radio on a Tuesday or a Friday, or what he said maybe after a game so much. But as someone who enjoys the content that we get from Jerry, I don't want him to go away.
No, I get it. I get it. No, I do get it.
This is not Jerry's style or the Cowboys style at all, and hasn't been for a long time. But is there, like you mentioned Dak's contract and what they've got to do there. He's got a year left. And and they can't really roll the dice and say, like, look, win or you're not going to get another contract, because even if he wins, if they don't sign him, he's probably going to leave anyway because of how it works in the NFL, because somebody's just going to bowl him over. So what do they do when it comes to Dak? Because, he's just coming off the best season of his career, comes out and has his worst game in the playoffs.
Right, and that's the whole I said earlier, right? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't assign him to an extension, well, he's $59.5 million against your cap. Pretty paralyzing. Not impossible, but pretty paralyzing to go out and re-sign guys that you would want to re-sign, be it Biadish or Dorrance Armstrong, or pick a guy, Jordan Lewis, Tyron Smith, if he wants to play another year or two, whatever. Makes that difficult. And if you do that extension, well, now you've committed $50 million to a quarterback who has not gotten to a conference title game, let alone a Super Bowl. And since 1980, there's only been 3 quarterbacks to go to a Super Bowl for the first time with a team that drafted them in years 9 or 10 for the first time. And that's Ken Anderson in Cincinnati, Peyton Manning in Indianapolis, and Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Like, Matt Ryan and Peyton Manning were in their 9th years when they went to the Super Bowl for the first time. Ken Anderson was in his 10th. So, again, like, the position is so important. When you got one, it's hard to let go of one because you never know when you're going to get another one. And let's be honest, they got lucky when they got Dak in 2016. They didn't think he was going to be this, so they wouldn't have drafted him number 135 overall. They would have drafted him in the 2nd round instead of Jalen Smith that year. So, part of me wonders if they just play it out, and because you don't want to get stuck in a situation where you're paying a guy. You want to pay a guy because you have to, or you want to pay a guy because you want to, not because you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a debate right now. So they want to pay Dak. They love everything about him. He's a great leader, has all the intangibles, works his ass off, does all that stuff, like everything you'd want your quarterback to be. But when it's mattered most in the playoffs, he's not come up big. So what is the right answer? What do you do? And that's their conundrum right now. Same conundrum basically as the head coach. You know, Mike McCarthy, 36 wins in the last 3 years, but they're the first team to win 12 games in the 3-year span in each of the last 3 years, and not at least advance to a conference title game. What do you do? It's successful, but it's not ultimately successful.
Yeah, I think I stick with that. At least you're knocking on the door. Maybe after 5 or 6 years you can't, but yeah, it's unbelievable. I think what Dak needs is somebody else make a big play early, whoever it is, a fumble, a sack, strip, interception, kick return, gets him off to a better start, and then he plays in a little bit more of a more relaxed, and because it does seem like he can get uptight pretty quickly. But again, it's hard. It's hard to win games in the NFL, especially playoff games. Todd?
But here's the thing, though, Smoak. You're paying the guy $40 million a year not to hope someone else makes the play for him.
I know. I 100% agree with you, but it's almost like he needs a break. And if he needs a break, then you don't need to pay him that $40-50 million a year and need to find somebody else. Because, I mean, the quarterbacks he's lost to, too, and the team have lost to. That doesn't make sense based on who they have, who's beaten them, straight up.
Look, if he played a great game on Sunday against the Packers, they were still losing that game because the defense was atrocious. They're losing 48-47 instead of 48-32.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That defense gave them nothing in that game.
I tell you, the scary thing is that Love sure does look like he throws the ball and has the same poise and does some things to flicker the wrist like a guy that used to be in Green Bay. And I'm not trying to.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it really is frightening if you're somebody else who's got to play them, and not just San Francisco this week. They might be just fine. Thank you, Todd. As always, great stuff. Todd Archer from ESPN.com. Coming up next, well, here's a note. This came from John McClain. He sent this to me last night. It's not a logo, it's a rating.
So, would you like to know who wrote this joke?
No.
You didn't know. It's our good friend Kostaki Kanamopoulos wrote that joke.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, my good buddy Kostaki wrote that joke. He's been on the show a bunch. But, he wrote that joke, and now I think NFL Memes turned it into a meme.
I'm glad we gave you the proper credit.
It is. But, yeah, I couldn't let that go without. But, yes, Kostaki wrote that joke, and It's very true. Like right now,
a business will go under if you get a 1-star rating, right?
All
right. Now, their TV ratings are a different story. When we come back, John McClain and Paul's Top 5, and this is 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco with a 48-foot walk-in humidor. I was there the other day, and Ashley was in, and they have a new THC product. They have a couple of different brands now, a couple of different options for you. If you or you know somebody that is in chronic pain where, man, it's just bad. And so they give options to you for that. One of them is called Bad Days, and it does work. Also, they have a CBD product called Vita Dreams. It's a gummy, it's, for example, like I use that vitamin C, whatever it is, that's a gummy. And this is the same type, I guess you could say, it's the same taste, it's the same feel, personality, except it allows you to go to sleep or relax to fall asleep a lot easier and not toss and turn as much. And some days there's just so much on your mind it doesn't matter. And 48-foot walk-in humidor with Rocky Patel, Macanudo, Ashton, Cohiba, Padron, on and on. The best cigars. Ashley, Cheyenne, and Carol are there. They know the business of both CBD and also THC, but also the cigar business and fresh coffee beans available if you want to. It's Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. They've been a sponsor of a show we've done for a long, long time in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive, Valley Mills, and Waco.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
Tampa Bay wins last night against Philadelphia. Buffalo with the win against Pittsburgh. Lots of coaching news, possibly what's going on with McCarthy or Tomlin, etc. Coaching searches, Bill Belichick. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, NFL voter, NFL Hall of Fame voter, and also on the committee, joins us on 365 Sports. John, let's get straight to the biggest story, I guess, should be the teams that won, but including the Texans. But it's all about Dallas and another failure, and your thoughts about what's going to happen with Mike McCarthy.
I thought the Cowboys this year were positioned better than they have been in recent years. I never thought they would beat the 49ers in the championship game, if indeed that's who they play. But to come out and lay an egg like they did on both sides of the ball and have Dak Prescott play so well in the season, being an MVP candidate, and then stinking it up as bad as he did, and Dan Quinn's defense looked like it wasn't coached at all. I don't see how you can run it back. You can't. Cowboys will always have their fans, but man, they were just a total embarrassment, and everybody knows it. And everybody's got an idea. I think if Jerry Jones could hire Bill Belichick, he'd do it in a heartbeat. People may say, "Well, why would Bill Belichick want to work with Jerry Jones?" Like they said, "Well, why in the world would Bill Parcells work with Jerry Jones?" And he made it work. And I think keeping Will McClay there is the kind of personnel guy that Belichick needs, because Belichick's personnel decisions since he let Nick Caserio get away have been terrible. And Dak needs somebody, and I don't know this would happen, but the last season that Josh McDaniels coached with Belichick was the rookie year for Mac Jones. And Mac Jones was the best of all the rookie quarterbacks, and everybody had high hopes for him. And then McDaniels was hired by Vegas, and Mac Jones has gone straight down the toilet. So I'm wondering, what could Josh McDaniels do with Dak Prescott? But as you guys know, the Cowboys have had other failures, but it's clock management, game management, Dak acting like a deer caught in the headlight. But this one was a total meltdown against the team I thought they would blow out.
Well, and look, for Bill Belichick, this is not going to be a 10-year hitch with the Cowboys, right? So it would seem to make sense that if the things they're missing are, and look, Bill Belichick, the reason he's as great as he is, not the only reason, but if the Patriots are always good at the little things. The Cowboys lose games because they're really not good at the little things. You know, that the game they lost earlier this year to Philadelphia, John, was, Dak steps out of bounds, kind of carelessly short of a touchdown. They line up, have an ineligible receiver, on a key play. Those things that when the Patriots were rolling and they had the talent they did, they just didn't make those mistakes.
Attention to detail. And even this year, the Patriots led the league in fewest average yards per rush, allowing. So their defense wasn't bad. It was a problem on offense. And that's why Belichick would have to make sure he got a really good coordinator. And his best years were with McDaniels. Don't know if McDaniels would want to do it, but he would have to get someone who could do, because the thing that got me about Prescott, and I know every Cowboy fan out there knows this, he didn't look prepared. He looked confused. He looked like kind of discombobulated. He and CeeDee Lamb. And I don't know if it was because of what the Packers were doing, or they just, something happened to them when they got to the playoff game. And I guarantee you, they took the Packers lightly. McCarthy didn't. He pumped them up all week to get serious about this game, and that's a subconscious thing anyway. But man, oh man, I don't know many more thorough butt kickings in a playoff game I've ever seen by a team that should have lost decisively.
Well, John, that was not even close to the only butt kicking this weekend when it came to the NFL playoffs. There was another one, those Houston Texans, 45-14 over the Cleveland Browns down in H-Town. What was that atmosphere like, and what's the feeling like after the big playoff win for DeMeco Ryans, C.J. Stroud and company?
It was the wildest and craziest crowd I've ever seen here, Craig, since their first playoff game in 2011 when they beat the Bengals and rookie J.J. Watt returned an interception for a touchdown. The Watt phenomenon was born. They beat Andy Dalton, the hometown hero from Katy, and it was like that on Sunday. I picked the Browns to win by 4. They were favored by 2. They had come in on Christmas Eve, had them down 36-9, called off the dogs and lost and won 36-22. And this Texans team didn't have C.J. Stroud, of course, and he made a hell of a difference. And their defense supplied 2 pick sixes, first time that's been done in a playoff game since 2008. Now, Baltimore's favored by 9.5. That may go up. and I fully expect Baltimore to win. But I've learned not to doubt C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. It's amazing when you think they have a first-year head coach, first-year offensive coordinator, play caller, first-year quarterbacks coach, and Gerard Johnson, and a rookie quarterback. And they've been able to go 11-7 since they lost their first two at Baltimore and Indianapolis. They've been 11-5, and the coaches are really doing a good job. They've overcome so many injuries. Their offensive lines now use 4 left tackles, 4 left guards, 5 centers, 1 right guard, and 4 right tackles. And so that's one reason the offensive line still struggles, but they dominated the Browns, number 1 defense in the league, and Larry Tunsil, the left tackle, made it look like Myles Garrett didn't show up.
NFC quarterbacks with Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, who obviously has had a really nice start. Jordan Love, who looked like if I would have closed my eyes and or maybe not, looked like Aaron Rodgers. I know it's one game, but he's really coming on strong. Baker Mayfield, reclamation project. Goff, what a nice moment that was for him. But the AFC has Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and the super phenom and C.J. Stroud. Is it back and forth sometimes with what conference has the best coaches and or quarterbacks?
Well, you left out Justin Herbert. He's pretty good, too. Tua Tagovailoa.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the ones remaining in the playoffs. I'm sorry.
Oh, the ones remaining in the playoffs, sure. And, if you had gone back to the first of the playoffs and said, I'm going to bet on every team that has the best quarterback. Now, you would have taken Dak Prescott over Jordan Love, but usually it is the best quarterback. Now, that's why I can't wait. Buffalo and Kansas City, that playoff game 2 years ago was as good as I've ever seen. And if the rule was the rule now that it was then, and they changed it because of this, when Chiefs got the ball in overtime, Mahomes took them to a touchdown, and Josh Allen never touched the ball. And just like when Brady beat the Chiefs, he took them to a touchdown, and Mahomes never got to touch the ball. So now we don't have to worry about that. But in fact, Patrick Mahomes has been in the league since 17, and he's never played a playoff game on the road. That just blows me away. And the other one that's even crazier, since the Texans came into the league in 2002, they have more playoff victories than the Cowboys.
John,
you got any more of those, John? That's good stuff right there.
Say that again.
Since the Texans came into the league in 2002, they have more playoff victories than the Cowboys.
I think I heard a stat that the Packers have as many wins at AT&T Stadium, playoff wins at AT&T Stadium as the Cowboys since it opened.
Well, counting the regulars, they're 7-0 overall there, and they won a Super Bowl there, and they've never lost at AT&T Stadium. They're home away from home. Maybe if they play next year, we'll take them more seriously. And what they did and what the Texans did, I didn't think possible.
Yeah. John, on the Texans, I mean, most times Italians get beat up that bad, they wind up in the bottom of a river for poor Joe Flacco. But of the coaches that are available, I mean, you mentioned Bill Belichick. I know he interviewed with the Falcons. The Cowboys would be a possibility if Mike McCarthy does get fired. But Mike Vrabel's out there, and Jim Harbaugh, complete interview with the Chargers. Where do you see the two of them ending up? Do you think Jim Harbaugh ultimately does wind up with the Chargers?
I thought there was a story out by USA Today columnist that Harbaugh has a clause in that contract that they're trying to get him to sign, saying he can't be fired or penalized if they get penalized by the NCAA. So that's kind of strange. But I'll tell you a great story. Mike Greenberg of ESPN told a story last week. He said he was at a funeral of a longtime Michigan guy he knew, and Harbaugh knew him, and he was there, a big alum. And afterward, they were talking, and Harbaugh was talking about all the great young quarterbacks in the NFL. And Greenberg said the one he talked about the most, Justin Herbert. He couldn't stop talking about Justin Herbert. So that's why Greenberg thinks he's headed to the Chargers, and that's a pretty good reason to believe it, because they also don't have a GM, and he's going to want control. I think Mike Vrabel will be great in Atlanta because they like to run the ball. They have two backs, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algiers. They got skill position players, good defense, good offensive line, They're just missing that one little position, but they have the 9th overall pick, and this is a deep draft, and there are going to be some veterans like Kirk Cousins available.
John, what did you think of the Eagles' ending to the collapse that's been clear and obvious down this stretch for a while now?
Craig, they got that disease that affects all
It's unbelievable.
Super Bowl losers. Super Bowl losers do not go back to the Super Bowl for whatever reason. New England did once, but then you got to go back to the 90s. And I don't know why. You would think the Super Bowl loser would be the most motivated, determined team to get back, but that's what happens. And when they were 10-1 and started to lose, I thought, man, they've got that disease. And it's no surprise Cowboys won the division because nobody repeats as champion. So we can go ahead and mark in Philadelphia next year. Maybe, I don't think Washington or New York, but the Cowboys won't repeat because nobody ever does. But it's just amazing the way they fell apart. Great offensive line, great defensive line. They didn't do squat.
Yeah, it's almost like they mailed it in. That's a nuts. That trend is nuts. Yeah, is that trend? Yep.
It was like Aikman said last night early. They just didn't look like they wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And that is a terrible, terrible sign for the coaching staff. And I'm guessing Sirianni won't get fired, but there'll be big changes on his staff.
Is the stat still around that was forever that at least half the teams that make the playoffs the next year don't? Is that, you remember that where it seemed like it went on and
yeah.
on? Yeah.
And there's at least, like this was true last year, at least 4 teams gone from worst to first, like the Texans have this year. In fact, 2 teams that went from worst to first have won the Super Bowl in the last 20 years. And that's one thing the NFL likes is the turnover. You don't want New England dynasties with multiple teams or all of your – you don't want like baseball where you got a lot of teams that spend all the money that are up at the top. And the NBA, like it was with the Warriors and the Lakers, and they call it parity, and that's Parity, not Parody.
John, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time as always.
Thank you, guys. Second Bears.
John McClain with us on 365 Sports. A quick look at men's basketball tonight. Top 20 teams in action. Some of these are Big 12. TCU at Cincinnati, Baylor, and Jerome Tang and Scott Drew. Also, KU at Oklahoma State.
Drew hadn't beaten Tang, has he?
No, he's 0-2. Iowa State, BYU, which has had a really explosive offense. Florida at number 6, Tennessee, Rick Barnes. And Purdue, number 2 in the country, playing at Indiana on Peacock. So there you are with tonight's schedule.
Been fun to see the excitement from the new teams that have joined the conference, like a Cincinnati, about like,
Man,
oh wow, they really like basketball in this league, and wow, that every week or every game's like really difficult or a pretty nice matchup.
Ask
and
Houston.
I think Houston's realizing that. I think they kind of knew though coming in, like they were about to take a step up. But I mean, I think for BYU, Cincinnati, UCF's had their moment with the court rush last week, but I think I saw a UCF fan who was just commenting on some random thread about like, wow, like we're not great, but this is a lot of fun to care about basketball that we didn't really care about previously. And so, it's cool to see that everybody's sort of embracing how strong the hoops are. And that's what the Big 12 should do. That is your foot in the door. That's the one area of college sports right now, of the moneymakers, where you are on an even footing with the other.
In fact, maybe ahead of
the SEC, or for example. So that's what the Big 12 needs to continue to focus on and continue to have as strong as possible, regardless of all the other stuff that goes on around them.
8 teams, I think, in the Big 12 right now are ranked 7 or 8. Yeah,
and I'll tell you, for Houston, I'm curious to see when they get to the postseason and they get to. I mean, look, if they've been to Elite Eights and Final Fours repeatedly over the last few years, and what happens to them usually is they've only played a game or 2 in the season against a Big 12 caliber opponent before they get to the postseason. And then because they're a high seed, they may not necessarily get that either in the first couple rounds. Yep. And so then it's been from November to March where they've played a team that is on their level.
It'll make them better, you would think, for the tournament, or unless you're beat down. Remember what Calvin Sampson said. There's a lot of pit bulls, not a lot of chihuahuas.
Well, and like that's what I'm saying. Like, so you're not going to get caught off guard by the style of play, which they have done a couple times where a team has come in and like, oh, well, we haven't seen this and had to run this hard consecutively for a while. I think this will be better prepared and might put them over the top.
I'll tell you, Skillings at Cincinnati, I got a chance to see him Saturday night. He's really talented. I'm surprised he didn't touch the ball in their last couple of possessions, at least that long last possession before their shots did not go down. One quick note, the last day of that huge sale with both Ram and Jeep at Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Remember, that runs through tonight when the dealership closes down on many MSRPs of $15,000. MSRP or 2.9% financing. A lot of great opportunities from both Ram and also Jeep. Blowing your mind if you get there. Ted Teague, the general manager, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 ACC NFL draft prospects, and I was going to pepper these throughout. Actually, this is one I did before the coaching carousel spun last week, and I'll probably have to do a Michigan one here before the end of the week, one would think. But top 5 ACC draft prospects. Number 5, defensive tackle Leonard Taylor out of Miami. I think this is a fit to the Ravens. You know, at where they're going to be towards the end of the draft, they do need. I mean, they're not going to need much, but a refresh in their defensive line would be really good. But anybody who needs a defensive tackle who can stop the run, who's athletic, who can get back and get after the passer, this is somebody who can certainly do that. And someone who may not get into the first round, but he's going to be pretty close and may sneak in right there at the end.
How many defensive linemen? I immediately thought about Randy White was 54, but remember he was like a linebacker at one point at Maryland. Have a 50 on them.
That may usually
most
90s.
Of them now have gotten in the 90s,
getting the single digits or
60s
something
or whatever.
cool.
That's the first thing I thought about with Taylor.
But yeah, Leonard Taylor, kind of an old school dude there for Miami, and one I know that they hate to lose this year, given the fact that it does look like things are pointed up now that Cam Ward's there. You hate to lose your best defensive player as well. Number 4, my son Keon Coleman. Who
I've always
He's your
said,
son. You got some explaining to do.
Yeah, I've been saying. Remember your uncle one day walked up to you and goes, "So you have kids?"
My adopted son, Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
No, I love Keon Coleman. This is a dude who's got an NFL body. He's got NFL jump. He's got NFL speed. He's just a playmaker. He's someone who can step in and kind of, especially if you are. You have it like maybe an established number 1 already. He's going to make everything better for your offense pretty quickly. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, everything you want, and makes ridiculous catches. This is, he's the best wide receiver in the ACC this year, talent-wise. I'm sure there might be some statistical guys that maybe go past him, but this is a dude of all dudes.
Yeah, it seems like a wide receiver. Maybe just my perspective, but that has become now like the second sexiest spot to watch as far as just electrifying position in the draft and the number of names and the crowded room there in the first round of top wide receiver prospects. But he's certainly a part of that grouping, and had a really nice year, a really nice follow up to the year he had prior to leaving East Lansing for Tallahassee, so that was a good investment on FSU's part, obviously. It's a shame it ended the way that it did, which will always be the way you talk about players and that particular Florida State team, but, I mean, he gave them what they were wanting and expected and was a huge part of their great run that just didn't end the way that they wanted it to, but, he's a freak show. Yeah,
and I remember thinking, like, oh, this is when he signed there, like, oh, this is cool. That'll help some depth there, but, I mean, I'd only heard about him, like, kind of tangentially at Michigan State. And then that LSU game, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Garrett knows. He still has nightmares about it.
He's just so big, too. I mean, he's not, like, big, like, measurement-wise compared to everybody else. I mean, he's just a big receiver, typically. But he just looks so much bigger out there when he's playing. But, he's another kid from Louisiana.
Is he really?
They just, I mean, if you're looking at what state would you go to for certain positions – it's hard to beat Louisiana in wide receivers, I feel like.
Where's Jamar Chase and Jefferson from? I know they played at LSU. I wonder where they were
they're from there.
Okay.
They're from there.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's, maybe California or Texas for your quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That's a whole offseason thing. But Louisiana and wide receivers, man, there's something special.
Yeah, and let's not forget that they're going to have two guys, LSU in the first round too, this year, in Malik Neighbors and probably Brian Thomas. I mean, Brian might fall into the second round, but
iffy.
he's close.
Yeah, they were both born in Louisiana. Okay.
Number 3, Nate Wiggins, quarterback at Clemson. This guy's just dirty in the best way. Tough as nails, Clemson-style defense. I mean, and look, feel free to take any pot shot you want at Dabo Swinney, and I'm not going to stop you. But one of the things that I think got lost in the shuffle of Clemson's struggles recently was their defense never fell off. I mean, their defense was still good. It was how they are. Now, maybe that's going to see a drop-off, too, with the way that he approaches talent acquisition. But Nate Wiggins is one of the best players in the entire ACC. I mean, heck, I ranked him above Keon Coleman, for God's sakes, and that was not coincidental. That was for a reason. This dude can play. The rest of the teams in the ACC are thrilled that he is leaving because he will lock on you. He's tough. He's good in the run game. All of that, going to be a top 15, 20 pick.
Yeah, I'm not surprised here. He's the top-rated corner by most of the outlets, I guess you would say. And I'm just curious with Clemson about now that things are settling down again. Clearly there's no Dabo to Alabama threat. Not that there ever really seemed to be, but there's just something until there's a hire made. You don't really know. But is Cade Klubnik going to turn it on this year? That's what I'm kind of waiting to see. But, yeah, Clemson will be an interesting story.
DJ left because of Klubnik, right? I mean, wasn't that?
Well, I mean, DJ left because of the offense. Like, he was just stagnant. And Klubnik was there, and they'd kind of moved to that point because they'd hit their ceiling with each other. You know, like it was just how it was.
Well, have they ever gotten a ceiling with Klubnik? With all due respect, he's a hell of a player in high school and pretty decent, but they haven't really reached any kind of a nice ceiling with him.
Well, and look, the guy who's right behind him on this list is kind of the reason why in Keon Coleman, in that, Dabo Swinney has not gone out and gotten those guys. Like, again, nobody's telling you to go get 30 guys out of the transfer portal like Deion Sanders is going to do, Dabo. But
he can do what we've seen Texas do by filling roles of players who left who are really good at about 6 or 8 different schools.
If you got 7 players out of the portal, like, you would be back where you were. Yep. Like, I think that's where it's weird to me. Like, you don't have to go whole school.
You don't need to do.
I don't think he's anti-portal. I think he's anti the antics and what he would have to do to get the guys that they want out of the portal. Yeah. That's how I view it, at least. Because I don't think he's stupid enough to sit there and go, like, man, I need a corner, but I want to do it the old way. Like, I think he'd much rather say, yeah, I'll go grab a junior out of the portal and be ready to play. But I just read it as he can't be that stupid to be like anti it all entirely.
But he's just never taken anybody.
I know, but I think I think he's put off more by the negative parts that we focus on more than the idea of it in general. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the negative part now is he's being criticized because his team had such a standard. And
he didn't handle it well at all. No. He didn't handle it well. But I think if he had to choose, like, he'd like to go the portal route, but not if he's got to sit there and go bid for bid with Miami and USC and whoever for that same. That's what I think he probably doesn't like too much. I don't think most coaches like that too much. That's why they'd like to be some transparency.
But
that's the market.
But I don't like going to the dentist, but I do it.
Right. But some people put it off.
That's where he has to. Yeah. That's where he's got cavities now.
No, you're right.
And he didn't have them before. Number 2.
And he's anti-fill-in.
Yeah. Number 2, Jared Verse at FSU. One of my favorite plays as a fan in history was Jedd. It happened twice, back-to-back games, but the one at the end of the Florida game where Jared Verse threw the left tackle into the quarterback to kind of end any kind of chance Florida would have had to getting back into that game. That is what he can do. His sack numbers were down because everyone was kind of reacting to the fact that he was there. And then if you watch the way that Jared Verse adjusted and adapted that towards the end of the year, this guy's ceiling is really, really high. His arrow is pointed straight up, and he is not easily blockable. He's a plug-and-play defensive end, especially in pass rush situations. This is someone who will help your team win instantly if you get him. He is on an ascendancy. Now, he might fall into the 15 or whatever, but he is someone, especially if you're a good team and draft him at, like, say, 26 or something like that, he's going to help you really, really quickly.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to add to that, honestly.
Was the biggest play ever, though, the blocked extra point or field goal against LSU? Is that one?
I don't know. That might have kicked off something. I don't think he was the only one.
That's the first time I'd ever heard of him.
Yeah. That's the first
too.
time
That
ever.
was the first game, yeah.
He came
It's
from
the first time you ever wanted to hear from him ever
I
again.
don't want to hear about him again.
You know what? Here's the thing. And this is probably years of a Cowboy fan too. When he came from Albany, and like I'd read on the FSU website, it's like, oh man, this guy's so good. He's from Albany. I'd be like, okay, whatever, dude. You know, like, all right, let's all try to get excited about one positive thing since it's been the desert. And then all of a sudden, like first game out of the box against the best team they were going to play all year, he's like, whap.
He was good.
Yeah, he was really good. And number one, this should be pretty obvious. Drake May for UNC, the quarterback. Probably he's the top 3 pick. So he grades out all metrics really, really well. I think the only knock, and it's not even on Drake May, but the last couple of years, just North Carolina faded hard down the stretch, especially this year.
You hear Mac today pumping the NIL that they need to go up to another level, kind of like Saban did a couple of years ago.
He wants basketball NIL. That's what he wants at UNC. But Drake May, though, going to be one of those dudes who's going to be interesting to see where he lands. I mean, he's not going to get past Washington, you would think, unless the Bears don't trade the pick, don't draft a quarterback, and take somebody like Marvin Harrison, number 1 overall.
Washington as the number 2 pick. They're going to either get May, who played in their backyard, or Caleb Williams, who's from there. In Washington, D.C.
Or Jaden Daniels.
And Jaden Daniels, who, of course, was the Heisman.
I think they have to go quarterback, though. I think with a new coach, you got to do that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's just Washington?
Just the timing
and they introduced a new GM who's got a lot of rave reviews from what he's learned, hopefully, with John in San Francisco.
The funniest tweet I saw about that was from Craig Hoffman, who we've had on the show before. But Craig said, it was really strange to hear Adam Peters call Josh Harris Josh, in that no one was allowed to call Dan Snyder Dan.
Yeah, it was Mr. Snyder.
Yeah, I know he's probably on a yacht in the Mediterranean right now, not worrying about life too much, and he'll never have to worry about paying a bill.
Smoak with the big fatty.
Smoak, I mean, I'm glad that he's gone. He can smoke whatever. I'm glad that he smoked his way on out of town and that he finally got run off because, man, that was long overdue. But, if he's not a Bear or not a Commander, then you know who's sitting there at 3. It's the New England Patriots, as they change coaches now, and I don't think everybody's sold on their situation with Mac Jones by any means. Bailey Zappi had some moments, but I don't know. Like, that's another interesting one with a coaching change that you got to wonder about what direction they would go. So, the draft's still a bit of a ways away, but it's fun to start looking at and definitely intriguing at the top with all these great quarterbacks and receivers.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Don't forget, 10:30 tonight on the local CW, 365 Sports Tonight. Emery Winter will put together the best of the segments and interviews from today. Garrett Ross maneuvering through many tweets and graphics and images. Thank you very much. And also Jack McKenzie here and all who are a part of us when it comes to sponsorships and you, the audience. We do appreciate you. All right, coming up tomorrow, we'll do it again. Triple option at 1, this show at 3. Have a great night. David Smoak for Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Good night, 365 Sports. Like and subscribe if you can.